Paul Finebaum here. In the South, we love football and Crystal. The Hot Off the Grill Crystal Burger is the perfect complement to any tailgate. Take a steamer pack of 24 Crystals to your tailgate. Why didn't I think of that? Plus, Crystal knows you love wings. Barbecue or buffalo wings, Crystal is the stop for all of your cravings this fall. Text Paul, that is P-A-U-L, to 37793, and Crystal will hook you up with 2 free Crystals. Nobody does football like the South, and nobody does tailgates like Crystal. Another week. It is Monday. Welcome to the program. Glad you are with us, and we look forward to spending these next few hours together and kind of update you on what has transpired. Not a lot of football to talk about over the weekend. There was the Army-Navy game. There was the Heisman Trophy. But there has been some news today. Let's get right to the headlines on this Monday afternoon. Philip Fulmer back in the saddle. He's recruiting for the Vols. He knows about it. He was one of the better recruiters in college football before he left college football 9 years ago. And he's out there doing it again. We'll get the latest as we move throughout the program. Meanwhile, Kirby Smart, just second year, he is the winner of the Sporting News Coach of the Year award. There was some pretty good competition for that prestigious award, but Kirby takes home the hardware. And this is breaking news. Shea Patterson, one of the better quarterbacks in the league, has put out a tweet saying, "Thank you to the wonderful people, teammates, and coaches at Ole Miss. It is a special place, and I will always have great memories of my experiences in Oxford. I am now excited to announce my commitment to continue my athletic and academic career at the University of Michigan.
Hairball country.
It's time to go to work. Hashtag go blue." How good was Shea? Pretty good. He really did it all. Most games with 350-plus yards in a season in Ole Miss history. A lot of competition there. Chad, Eli, Archie doesn't even count. Archie who? He's off to the maize and blue. Jim Harbaugh does it again. Can't win on the field, but he's pretty good off the field. Welcome to Monday. A lot to do on the program, and we will, of course, include your phone calls. Before we get to the calls, let's tell you exactly what we will be doing here. Dan Murphy from ESPN.com. Murph will join us. Mike Bianchi. He of the hot takes on the fact that Jimbo Fisher will never leave Florida State to go to the SEC. Hot takes exposed, or old takes exposed. Remember that guy? We had him on. Barrett Sallee, he'll be with us. McElroy. But time for your phone calls. We like to do that on Monday. Try to get right to you to see what is on your mind. Let's talk to B-Rad in Missouri. B-Rad, go right ahead.
Hello, Mr. Finebaum. It is a pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you.
My name is B-Rad from Midmo.
I got it, bud.
Thank you. There's two things I wanted to discuss. One day last week, while discussing various coaching vacancies, several of your callers discussed who your replacement should be in case you were lured away to a bigger contract, to a bigger program.
By the way, I like the sound of this so far.
I would like to nominate Larry Culpepper as the obvious replacement. His Dr. Pepper podcast commercial is really funny, and I think he has an excellent voice for
radio. What do you Randy, what do you think about Larry Culpepper to fill this seat right here in the event that I'm
he's loved.
I'm no longer available? Well, yeah, first of all, Larry and I have about the same knowledge of football, none. So he would fit in well there. Larry, do you know that Larry is actually an actor? I've met Larry a couple of times, and he's very funny, though. He's doing quite well. But I will. You want to put Larry on the whiteboard? Larry's down as a possible replacement. Got to be, Rad.
Sir, I'd like to get your opinion on something.
Okay.
I would like to discuss the University of Missouri football program.
Sure.
The last conference championship was in 1969, nearly 50 years ago.
Long time.
Under Coach Dan Devine.
Oh, great coach.
There was a 14-year drought of absolutely no bowl appearances between 1983 and 1997 when Coach Larry Smith finally led the team to the Holiday Bowl. University of Missouri is the only FBS program in a state of 6 million people. Columbia, Missouri is located in the center of the state, and there are two different metropolitan areas within a 2-hour drive. What keeps Missouri from being a better program? Is it the location, the facilities, the coaching salaries, the recruiting budget, or something else? I think it's because the fan base is not very passionate and is just too willing to settle for bowl invitation every year or two.
That's a really interesting analysis, B-Rad. I think this program has had ebbs and flows, and certainly under Gary Pinkel, they came pretty close, got up to number 1 in the country, and I think what we're watching now is critically important. We're watching a program that was given up for dead, left in the middle of the road for roadkill about 4 games into the season, and Barry Odom has resurrected it. If he can finish the job in a bowl game against Texas, maybe get some enthusiasm and momentum for next year, then I think this program has a chance to take the next step. It does need to take it, though. I agree. It can't just stay right there in the middle where it's been for so long. Let's go to Missouri. Have we ever had back-to-back Missouri calls?
No.
We have now. Millie is up next.
Well, hi, Paul. How are you doing?
We're doing great, Millie.
Okay, now one thing, please don't ever leave the show. Nobody can take your place, absolutely nobody, okay?
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it, and I'll keep that in mind as
I got sick to my stomach when you started talking about that. The thought of not seeing the best program on the air because nobody could make it as good as you do.
Oh, I don't know. I believe that they're very capable people, but they'd have to change the name of the show. That would be the only issue.
Well, I don't like it.
Is there a device to take people aren't in the studio right now. My name's there, and Randy, is there somebody that could scrub all this away?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, it can be done.
No,
I thought it would be more. Frankly, I thought it'd be more difficult than that. But
did you? I understand. I watch your first hour of your show all the time when I can.
Yeah.
And I heard that you watched the Army-Navy game. Did you like it?
Oh, it was fantastic. Now, in fairness, I didn't start at 2:00 and work my way to the end. I did catch the final quarter.
Well, I was so happy that the Army won. My Uncle Harold would have been really happy about that.
Oh, my goodness.
He went to the point back in World War II, so he always went to the games and everything.
Yeah, I was kind of conflicted because my dad, as you probably heard me say Friday, was in the Army. I have a nephew who is a commissioned officer and a graduate of Annapolis.
Oh, really?
My father-in-law is a retired Navy veteran, so it's a little bit. Again, you
a mixture.
I grew up watching the game with my dad, who loved being in the Army and serving the country. So that's where my kinship for the Army came from.
Yeah, and I know about Benji giving you guys the fits there in Charlotte. I'm so sorry about that one.
Hey, by the way, Uncle Harold, which theater or war did he serve in?
Well, he got out of the service in 1944.
That would be World War II.
No, he got out of the point in 44, and then he went to the European
theater,
operation.
Yeah.
Getting rid of Hitler. He was part of the people who got rid of the.
Yeah, the European theater didn't. Both wars, of course, didn't end until 45. The spring. Yeah. So that's very interesting. And
because he was a pilot, he flew the missions to Berlin. Flew all the stuff because Berlin was cut off. If you remember.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Oh, and by the way,
there's this new movie coming out. It's about Churchill. It's called The Darkest Hour. I can't wait. It's supposed to be fantastic. I can't wait to see it. That is such a. People that listen. I wasn't alive, but certainly my parents were, and many relatives. But this country back then, Millie, the idea of what was going on over here, and especially in England. London literally was under siege.
Oh, yes.
It was being bombed every night by the Germans. We'll take a break. Enough conversation about WW2. We'll leave that to your parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents. We'll continue talking college football and elsewhere and other things here at 855-242-7285 when we come back.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I'm so happy, I feel like I can fly.
Disclaimer, you will not be able to fly by switching to Geico. This is against the laws of physics and nature. If you find yourself flying, please seek professional and or medical help immediately. In the unlikely event you find yourself flying, you might be a superhero, or a pigeon, or a superhero named Pidgewoman, who was bitten by a radioactive pigeon. If you are indeed Pidgewoman, Geico retains all licensing publishing rights in the event Pidgewoman the movie becomes a top-grossing Hollywood blockbuster.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
We're talking about Missouri here during the break. If Missouri can beat Texas in that bowl game, then I think we're going to say, you know what, that's a great year. Otherwise, you can pick it. You can pick some of the wins apart. Let's move along and check in with Jeff, who is in Memphis, Tennessee. Hello, Jeff.
Hey, Paul. How you doing today, man?
Doing great. Operator, get me Memphis, Tennessee.
I was the guy that called in the other day about Pruitt getting the job at Alabama. I think I mentioned something to you. Remember the call the other day?
I sure do. You bet.
I just want to say, Paul, appreciate what you guys do, and appreciate all all the things you bring us. Hey, I didn't get in the other day when Jim had his breakdown or whatever, but here's the thing that I have come to talking about Jim and Squirrel. What do you think as far as Paul, as far as just banning Jim from the show? What do you think?
Do you think we should ban? In the history of this show, I think as it stands, there's only one ban still in existence. And I'm not going to get into that because I'm not going to glorify the guy that did it. We have banned two other people. They both had trials, and I was the judge at both proceedings, and I found them guilty but committed them to time served, so we let both Phyllis and Tammy come back. So the question on the table is, should Jim be banned? Mark and John, you guys have an opinion on that?
Yeah. Did I miss something? What would he be banned for?
I'm not sure what the transgression was.
There's been nothing so egregious I've seen that would require a ban.
Is this an ethics complaint?
Well, kind of, it just seems to me like he's hung in the old show, and, I think, Paul, what you guys are doing is great.
Well, but Jeff, you can't ban someone because 11 years ago he made a phone call to a talk show, which was this show, and said, right after we changed radio stations, 11 years ago, and because he said, this is the worst show I've ever heard, and it will never be successful. And, I mean, you can't ban him for saying the same thing like 10 times.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, if he doesn't like the show, why don't he just quit listening? I mean,
I agree. And by the way, we really like the show. I mean,
I love it. I think what you're doing is fabulous, Paul.
I mean, we come here every day, and everybody, all the people that work behind the scenes, put a lot of time in the show, and it's disappointing that the only person that doesn't like it is Jim. I think we should just shut the show down because one person doesn't like it.
I mean, what do the listeners think? I mean, can they call in and vote?
I mean, it's we only have about 10 listeners left, so based on Jim, and we don't have any. Do we have any viewers? Do you know?
Well, yeah.
I don't think so. I mean, you can't. You walk into you live where? Maybe you walk into a sports bar in Memphis or Birmingham, and honestly, today you might not see us. There's a pretty good chance the cable news networks are going to be on at every sports bar in Alabama today, but that will change tomorrow. But yeah, really good call there, Jim. I don't know. I mean, sometimes you just have to roll with the punches, and we've had a lot of listeners and callers that have been with us the whole time, and this next guy, I never remember him calling out. He can complain and critique, and that's fair. That's what we do here. But I've never heard this guy say this show's the worst I've ever listened to. Right, I-Man?
Absolutely not. No, and not live from the capital of the cradle city.
Yeah, we know.
Capital city. Anyway, why would you ban Jim? I mean, although he did say he could outswim Johnny Weissmuller.
Yeah. Well, no, I think to ban someone.
He was a better dog than Deputy Dog, and he was a better hitter than Ted Williams, and he's probably a better catcher than Johnny Bench too, and probably a better pitcher than Sandy Koufax, and all those things. And he played pool better than Minnesota Fat.
He did.
But why would you ban him? Jim is a great caller. I love a good lie in the middle of the afternoon. And he tells one better than anybody, Paul. He tells those lies with a straight face, and you could almost believe them if they weren't unbelievable. But I do know this, and bear with me for a second.
Okay, I will.
The state of Alabama football teams have laid it all on the line. This state of Alabama, its football fans have laid it all on the line. Tomorrow is the day the Alabama voters should lay it all on the line and vote for a man that does his job and doesn't whine and complain and point fingers and get kicked out of his job. Tomorrow, the hell freezes over, Paul Finebaum. The Eagles are back on tour, and I will be voting Democrat for the first time in 31 years.
Are you okay? I mean, I don't normally talk about politics. But when a man calls up and says he's voting Democratic for the first time in 31 years?
31 years.
For those who don't know, and I can't imagine how you wouldn't, there's an election tomorrow in Alabama. I'll say no more. But it's the most... no more. I didn't mean that intentionally. I don't take sides in political races. But I mean that's pretty extraordinary. Okay, we know who you're voting for tomorrow. Who was the last Democrat you voted for?
Charlie Graddick.
Charlie Graddick. I don't even remember Charlie being a Democrat, but I know he was.
Well, he was in the race with Bill Baxley.
Yeah, he
the
was
Democratic
in the
Party pulled him
listen,
out.
I do know. I mean, he's a Republican now, as a lot of people in Alabama became. But he was in a runoff with Bill Baxley, and the Democratic. And the Democratic bosses stole the election.
Well, and you know what? The Republican
a couple of good friends of mine, by the way, stole it. But they did steal that. Would you not agree, I-Man?
What's that now?
They did steal it away from Charlie.
Oh, absolutely they did. The people voted him in, and the Republican Party was just there as an honorary party. It really had no weight in the state of Alabama.
Guy Hunt was the nominee.
Election.
You're right.
And I'm telling you, for the first time, and I haven't block voted. I voted for people that I did my research on. I didn't vote for every Republican, but I will vote for Doug Jones tomorrow. And it's because I've heard him on this program, on your other shows years ago. He's a man that did his job, and I tell you what, he's a man that put his life on the line for some of the trials that he did prosecute. And I respect that versus a man who's been run out of his job twice. And this has nothing to do with allegations. It has everything to do with taxpayer money in the state of Alabama. And I am voting for the state of Alabama tomorrow. And if Mr. Jones later has to do something nationally because of his party recognition, that's on him. But I am voting for the people of the state of Alabama tomorrow. War Damn Eagle, we're only getting faster. Vote Doug Jones and vote as often as you can. Have a good day.
Well, no, I don't think you can vote more than 4 times, can you? What's that old line about Louisiana that I love so much? Was it Edwin Edwards? Is Governor Edwards still alive? I saw him a couple of years ago. What a character.
He's still alive.
He is alive. He was governor of Louisiana a number of times. And he had this line. He said, "It's election day. Vote early and vote often." And he won early and often. Ed is up next. Ed, have you voted in Alabama yet? Seems like everybody else is paying attention.
They have helmets lined up.
Ed, this mic is hot.
And they've always had Georgia.
Earth to Ed.
Finebaum's an out-and-out Alabama fan, and he'll admit it. But, and he has a right. But he doesn't show any.
Ed doesn't know we're on the air. Thanks, Ed. Good call. Ed apparently was just talking to somebody about me. What did he say about me?
Ordering lunch, wasn't he?
Ed was ordering lunch. It's 3:25 in the afternoon in Connecticut.
Eat early, eat often.
Eat early, eat often. Is that the motto at your house, Randy?
Yeah, that's the way we roll.
Governor Edwards had some other great mottos, which I'll leave off the air. But probably one of the most famous axioms in all of political history. Let's try Tommy up next in Tennessee. Hello, Tommy.
Hey, Paul, how you doing? First-time caller this year. I'm glad I finally got through.
Thank you.
Paul, I want to thank the people of Alabama for giving us Coach Pruitt. Hey, he's coming to a great school, and we're looking forward to having him up here. And Vol Nation, let's get behind him. And, Paul, I have a question. I'd like to make a comment after your answer. on the Army-Navy game. Paul, is it any NCAA rule saying that the players cannot call these young athletes that are interested in coming to Tennessee and kind of give them say, hey, we're a great school and we'd love to have you come? Is there any rule against that?
I don't think there is. I think players on teams can recruit very easily. I don't think there are any rules against that.
Okay, I often wondered that, Paul.
It happens quite a bit.
I hear you. And I do want to say one thing quickly. Hey, people, calling in, Paul is about football. We don't need to talk politics or any junk like that. Let's talk about sports. That's what the man's sitting there for. Him and Laura do a fantastic job. So let's let him do their job. And, Paul, on the Army-Navy game, I'm really proud of those guys that played over the weekend. I am a Navy veteran, and the thing is both teams win regardless of the score. And it was a fantastic game to watch every year. And, Paul, thanks a lot for taking my call, and you have a nice holiday, you and Laura both.
Thank you very much.
Crew there.
You got it, Tommy. Appreciate it. And, yeah, I agree. We hear enough about politics elsewhere. We don't need to know who people are voting for. Let's take a break. We'll talk about the Shea Patterson decision today to head to Michigan. Coming back after this. Glad you are back with us. Dan Murphy here from ESPN to talk about the big news today that Shea Patterson is transferring. Dan, thanks. Appreciate the time. Let's talk about, first of all, what's going on here. He certainly has to get a waiver. What can you tell us in terms of that procedure? Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, Paul. Thanks for having me. That's not a sure thing yet. Because he would have eligibility left once Ole Miss's bowl ban expires, he doesn't get automatically waived to transfer wherever he wants. He'll have to petition the NCAA. I would imagine, given that he's leaving and that Michigan is taking him, that they feel pretty good about their chances there. I think the argument they would make is that Ole Miss withheld some information from them about exactly what those sanctions would look like. And say because of that they want a free pass to start over. It seems like common sense would point to, in the fact that he's making this move, that they feel pretty good about their chances of that happening.
So let's assume that he gets the green light. Tell us in covering that league what type of significance this would have for Jim Harbaugh and his team. Well, I mean,
if he gets that go, he immediately jumps to the top of the list or among the top of the list, at least the most talented quarterbacks in the Big Ten. He's probably up there with Trace McSorley and maybe Dwayne Haskins, who's the heir apparent at Ohio State once J.T. Barrett finishes up. And really, I mean, it's been a missing piece for Michigan, especially this past year during their 8-4 season. The quarterback wasn't the only issue that the Wolverines had, but as you know, a good quarterback can make a lot of other issues disappear, and Michigan did not have the guy that could make other issues disappear this season.
And you also know Jim Harbaugh's offensive philosophy, assuming there has been one for the last couple of years. Put Shea Patterson in there, what happens to it, and how does it change?
I think he's a great fit. He's a big, strong-armed guy with pro-style type tendencies. I don't think Harbaugh is going to change too much of what he does, depending on who's under center. But I think Patterson's a good fit there. I think he'll come in and have to compete with Brandon Peters, who's another 6'5" guy with a pretty strong arm, to win that starting job. I mean, Patterson obviously has a pretty good shot of it, but I would imagine he wasn't given any guarantees in coming up to Ann Arbor. I think the philosophy that Harbaugh has most above anything else is the more competition you can squeeze into one place, the better off it's going to be, no matter how things shake out. He's betting big that'll be the case with Patterson, I think.
Talking to Dan Murphy about this decision, what else do you think Jim Harbaugh is capable of in relation to Ole Miss? Because there's been some speculation that Shea Patterson was not the only player he was eyeing.
Yeah, old Michigan it might be by the time this off season's over. It sounds like there's a couple other guys that Patterson might bring up there with him. I saw somebody made a comment in the past week that it would be an interesting last bit of revenge for Harbaugh because one of his most outspoken critics in that the satellite camp debates over the past couple of years was down at Ole Miss there. And now he's heading down there with what might be a short bus full of players by the time he's all said and done. But, I think Patterson coming up there is a good sign that at least one or two guys might want to follow him to Ann Arbor, and I'm sure they'd be welcomed on Michigan's roster at this point.
Interesting stuff. Shea Patterson announcing today. Do you have any backstory on how this came about? I mean, obviously we knew this was coming down the pike, and also the second part of that is in terms of being contingent on the appeal, I would think. But I mean, how did Jim Harbaugh connect, if you know, with Shea Patterson?
I don't know all of the details there. I know that Patterson played at IMG along with a couple other guys who are at Michigan now. Cesar Ruiz is Michigan's center of the future and one of their top recruits from a year ago. I know he and Patterson are pretty close. Patterson has moved around quite a bit and played a bunch of different places in high school. He was at Toledo, Ohio, where he was born, which is also where Harbaugh was born. So that's about an hour away from Michigan's campus, right on the Michigan-Ohio border. So he's not a total stranger to this part of the country, which probably helps a little bit too.
Dan, many thanks for your help. Fascinating story. I know it's certainly a game changer in the Big Ten. Great to talk to you. Thank you very much.
You too. Thanks, Paul.
Great stuff. Dan Murphy covers the Big Ten, and again, you can't undersell the importance of all this. We still don't know. We still don't know all the ramifications. This is not a guarantee that he'll be able to play. Ole Miss still appealing. There needs to be a waiver, but it is interesting though to get deeper into this. The fact that a player can leave the SEC and possibly play. This is something to keep your eye on. I think we had Ed on a minute ago. Let's try Ed one more time. Ed, you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
In case you were wondering, I heard you call me. Pick my phone up, and I was on the phone with a friend of mine, and we were discussing the Finebaum show.
Oh, okay. What were you saying? I mean, I could pick up a little bit of it.
I was saying that he claimed that you were always going with the flow, and you were picking Alabama, or you were showing more about Alabama. And I said I feel the same way, except that you are a fan of Alabama, and that's quite all right. You should be, you have a right to be whoever you want to root for. But you've always been fair to the, I think Georgia is the SEC champion. I think on this show Georgia should get more attention. But if Alabama fans are going to keep calling, that's who's going to get the attention. I don't hear anybody from Georgia. I mean, Rich has invited me down, and there's a possibility. And my friend Bob from Macon, you remember him, the guy with the sweater, says that if I come down, he too will be at Rich's house for that game. We're assuming that Alabama's playing Georgia, of course. Because if they don't, then it's going to be a little empty party. But even at that thing, there's going to be twice as many Alabama fans, and I don't even know between me and Bob who else is going to be rooting for Georgia. But anyway, right now, I'd like to bring up something. I really would. Tomorrow, Luann's having surgery. That is one of the bravest ladies I've ever heard. I mean, she's been in the hospital 10 months. And she still has that fight, and she's going to be home for Christmas. So if your fans remember Luann, I'm not one to say pray for her, because I'm not that, Southern thing or whatever, But this time do pray for her, because, my God, this girl or woman needs our prayers. She really does. She's lost 120 pounds, which has got to be a great help to her this time around. And
well, I'll tell you what, Ed, we'll certainly all be thinking of her and, of course, you with that very serious event tomorrow. Thank you for the call. We will take a break, come back, more phone calls, more guests on a Monday afternoon. Glad you're back with us. I think it was, who was it a minute ago, Ed?
Ed.
So we don't talk about Georgia enough on this show. Have we got the guy for you?
We do. But first of all, let me say this about Ole Miss. They're appealing, right?
Of course they're appealing.
Well, I think they're more like unappealing, to be straight honest with you. You know what I'm saying? Oh, let me say this about this race, this election thing going on in Alabama. I don't have a dog in this fight, okay? But I do find it somewhat unappealing, I guess would be a correct word, how allegations are always brought up right before an election. I mean, that just blows my mind. It would be a little more believable if they didn't do it around election time. But it's always weird.
Yeah, no, you're right, but that's how they always do it, though. It just seems like no matter whether it's last week or 40 years ago, I decided to bring this out. Oh, there's an election tomorrow? I had no idea.
Yeah, I mean, if something happened to you bad, I understand. Why would you wait till now to say that it was really?
But I will say this, though, Daryl, if you get off the political page, Matt Lauer was not running for anything 2 weeks ago when all that came out. Sometimes these things have a domino effect. Elections, yeah, and you know why? Because I've had friends running for stuff all the time. You hire a team, and what is their job? It's called opposition research. Go find dirt on that guy right there.
Exactly. Dig up as much dirt.
And by
as
the
you
way,
can.
Daryl, if you can't find it, make it up.
You create it, exactly.
I mean, it doesn't matter.
I'm glad that Mayfield won the Heisman, okay? I actually sat down and watched the first half of the Oklahoma-TCU Big 12 championship game. And I'm going to tell you something, okay? This is what stuck out more than anything. I've never seen so many freaking missed tackles in my life. There's some kind of tackles, they don't happen in the SEC. I don't know if you saw Roquan Steele for Georgia this year. He had not
I caught his act a few
missed
times.
tackle. Yeah, but he didn't have one missed tackle. Paul, I know you saw my tweet, right? You saw the ratings. You saw what I put out there. Those are facts, okay? That's like
hold on a second, Daryl. I saw your tweet.
You haven't seen it?
No.
ESPN ratings? Paul Finebaum show?
Oh, no.
For like the last 3 months?
Where'd you find that?
I found that off it's off of a site called Awful Announcing, believe it or not. But it's listed. They got a thing there for ESPN that shows all their ratings.
Oh, okay.
For every show.
I got it.
127,000, 110,000, 120,000. That's like Garth Brooks, okay, packing the house 5 nights in a row. That's big time. That's the equivalent of going yard in baseball.
Oh, by the way, I'm sorry. I did see it, Daryl. I apologize. I did see that earlier.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's like taking it to the house in football. Let me say this to the ESPN brass, okay? Who else are you going to find, okay, that will go toe-to-toe with friggin' Nick Saban and hold his feet to the fire? There is nobody else. That's what the people live for. This is the people show, okay? So the brass need to get off there. You know what, okay? Let's get it typed up. Let's get it signed, sealed, and delivered, and let's get this thing taken care of. Because that's the way it needs to be. You ain't going nowhere, Paul. See ya.
Starting to like Daryl more and more every day, don't you? Daryl bringing some heat today.
He's starting to make sense.
He is. I like that. Let's continue. Judy. I'm going old school here. In Birmingham. How are you, Judy? Judy, you there? Do I need to say Judy again? I don't think so. I mean, you can only say Judy 6 times. I mean, it's, for those who don't remember old Hollywood, it's Judy. It's not Judy. These guys don't know what I'm talking about. Look it up. Famous line in Hollywood history, isn't it? Go right ahead, Andy.
Hey, Paul. How you doing?
We're doing great. Thank you.
Hey, great show, Paul. I want to get your thoughts on this kid from Mississippi transferring to Michigan. Do you think that's Michigan's answer, maybe to beating Michigan State? And also, have you heard anything about maybe 7 other Ole Miss players thinking about transferring?
Yeah, I mean, originally that's the number I did hear. Now, so we talked to Dan Murphy a minute ago. I don't think it's over yet. I mean, people tried to paint this Ole Miss probation as not as bad as everyone thought. Well, it's now trending toward About as bad as everyone thought.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, Paul.
No, it really is. When you lose a quarterback of Shea Patterson's prowess, it's a pretty probation. Matt is in San Antone. What are you saying, Matt?
I want to talk about. I heard Jimbo Fisher hired a pretty good offensive coordinator, Paul.
Yeah, I've seen some reports of that. Has that been announced yet?
Yes, he hired the one from Duke.
Okay.
I heard he runs some kind of like pro style of tempo offense. You know if that's true, Paul?
I don't. I listen. We need to. We're still checking on that story, and I know what you're talking about, but I need to get some more information.
And I want to ask you 3 questions, Paul.
Okay. One.
Who do you think the quarterback for A&M is going to be next year? And what kind of
don't you think it's going to be? Don't you think it's going? Well, you tell me. Don't you think it's going to be Sturkle?
I think it's going to be Sturkle. I think it's going to be Mon. And
I don't know. I think Sturkle's been pretty amazing.
I think it's been pretty amazing too. And you know what? Actually, when we play Georgia on our schedule.
So A&M plays Georgia next year?
I think they play them in a couple years.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know when that's for sure.
I'll get the future schedules out here in a minute. I have not looked at anything but the bowl game. I haven't even looked at the bowl games yet.
Well, I know Missouri's going to beat Texas because they kind of really suck.
Yeah, A&M plays South Carolina and Kentucky next year. That's a little better than Georgia.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Georgia in 2019, Matt.
2019?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you very much. Yeah. What's that line about a failure to communicate?
Mm-hmm.
No, Judy's a line from Cary Grant. It's his most famous line ever.
What we have here is a failure.
I mean, you know, I mean, it's one thing if you go a 70s song, but I mean, Cary Grant's Cary Grant. Now John Hayes is probably Googling Cary Grant right now. Right, John? One of the great actors in American history. We will take a break. We still have 3 more hours of Hollywood trivia for you. Are you ready to go head-to-head with me? Well, good luck, because ready won't cut it. Be the readiest and give me your best shot at the Finebaum Face-Off at an SEC game near you. And before you step up, start your day with a free hearty breakfast at Holiday Inn Express. They're a proud sponsor of SEC football, and they look forward to helping you be the readiest. Holiday Inn Express, be the readiest. Paul Finebaum here. In the South, we love football and Crystal. The hot off the grill Crystal Burger is the perfect complement to any tailgate. Take a steamer pack of 24 Crystals to your tailgate. Why didn't I think of that? Plus, Crystal knows you love wings. Barbecue or buffalo wings, Crystal is the stop for all of your cravings this fall. Text Paul, that is P-A-U-L, to 37793, and Crystal will hook you up with 2 free Crystals. Nobody does football like the South, and nobody does tailgates like Crystal. We welcome you back. Matt from San Antonio was asking us a minute ago about Daryl Dickey, and reports are out there that he is going to be the new offensive coordinator under Jimbo Fisher. This is big news. Daryl Dickey has a lot of experience. He's a former head coach at North Texas, where he coached there for a number of years. He's been a coordinator at SMU, New Mexico. He was once the tight ends coach at LSU, a good reputation, and apparently Daryl Dickey is now heading to College Station to work there under Jimbo Fisher, as Jimbo beginning to put his staff together. We continue to talk a lot about Shea Patterson heading to Michigan. We had that story during the first hour. More of your phone calls at 855-242-7285. Let's check in with John in Tennessee. John, welcome to the show. Good afternoon.
Hey, Paul, how are you today?
We're doing great. Thank you.
I agree with the other callers. You are irreplaceable, and this is the People's Show.
Thank you very much.
I have a question. The Tennessee freshman quarterback, Will McBride, got kind of thrown in the one game as redshirt burn, and then he started. His first start was behind 4 freshmen and a walk-on. I just wanted to see if you saw him. I thought he was really electric as far as the passing and running, especially with that kind of line. Just wanted to see what your take was on him.
Yeah, thanks. That's a really good question. I hate to venture too deep into the answer there without knowing exactly what Jeremy Pruitt's going to do offensively or his philosophy, but I was impressed in the limited amount of time that I have seen him play. Thank you very much for the call. Matt is in Georgia, and you are next up. What do you say, Matt?
Hey, Paul. It was good to meet you at the SEC Fan Fair. I know when I saw you, you had a cast on your finger.
Well, fortunately, I have it off, so I'm really glad that after 5 weeks of being pinkied out, I finally got my hand back. So thanks for asking.
And I got 2 points. I
actually hurt my hand patting myself on the back so many times.
Well, I think you're great at what you do. First thing is, I don't think, and this wasn't the main point of the call, but Daryl from Columbus, he's not a Georgia fan. He's an Auburn fan disguised. I mean, the guy I've been going to games for the last 30 years. I've never seen Daryl from Columbus at a game. He's like that moron Uncle Lou who gets in his basement and sits there and screams that he's a Georgia fan, but he's never been to Athens, not once. I mean, you can't sit in your basement and root for a team. I'm sorry. It just doesn't work that way. So, Daryl, are you going to the Rose Bowl? Because most of Bulldog Nation is. I doubt it. I mean, so I get tired of that guy calling in. He is a poor representation of the University of Georgia. The main reason I called is Jeremy Pruitt. I think he's a good coach. But I'll warn Tennessee fans, you remember when he was at Georgia, a bunch of rumors went on when Rick was coach, how he had a bunch of confrontations, and there was one in particular where he got in a scuffle or a fight. Even Kevin Butler spoke to it with Schottenheimer about Georgia's offense, and I think he's a great coach, but he's a very temperamental, confrontational guy. If he can keep that in check, I think he'll be a great coach for Tennessee.
Well, let me answer. I mean, there was a pretty rough patch for Jeremy Pruitt a couple of years ago.
And Kirby wanted, and he asked Kirby. He asked before he went back to Alabama for Kirby to retain him as defensive coordinator, and Kirby said no. Before he ever took the Alabama job, he asked for University of Georgia to retain him as a DC, and they told him no.
I've not heard that. Of course, Kirby.
Well, you can go back and Google it.
Well, I don't need. I mean, Kirby clearly wanted Mel Tucker to come with him.
I think Jeremy Pruitt's a risky hire. I thought Kevin Steele. I thought Mel Tucker, and I still think an underrated hire that's not getting a lot of attention. And I know he's at Colorado State, but he can recruit. And he knows the South. He's kind of like Kirby. His dad was a coach in Georgia, and he can run a high octane.
There's another job that never came open that I heard Mike Bobo's name associated with. So
I think he would be a great hire for a. Georgia has 5 running backs, so they want to run the ball. But Bobo can run a high. I mean, he scored so many points at Georgia. The problem was the defense wasn't. The defense wasn't good enough. I mean, it just wasn't good enough. It stayed on the field too long because they scored too quick. So, and I think that's going back to Oklahoma. I think that's what you're going to see with Georgia is, Oklahoma's defense is awful, and Georgia will just sit down there and run the ball down their throat. And when you have 5-6 minute drives, I don't care how great Baker Mayfield is, he's not going to have the time to do it. He's not going to be able to get into 40-point, 50-point scoring war. But thanks, Paul. Thanks for everything.
Thank you very much.
Love your show. See you, buddy.
Nice of you to call. I do appreciate that. Let's continue with more phone calls here. Pete is up next. Pete, thanks. Good afternoon. Welcome to our show.
Hey, Paul. How are you today?
We're doing great.
Hey, I'll tell you, if I was a politician, I mean the type of endorsement I would want. That's powerful stuff. But the reason I was calling today is, Mississippi, I mean, this is as bad as it gets. You get Jimbo Fisher in the West. You're losing all your players. How many years do you think this could set them back?
Well, if they don't get any relief, it's going to hurt them a lot because remember they've already been hurt. Last year's recruiting was devastating because of the uncertainty, and listen, say whatever you want, but I think the fact that they elevated Matt Luke was an indicator that they knew problems were on the horizon. Well, of course they knew. They probably guessed correctly they would get that extra year. So it's always hard to calculate. But losing 2 years of a bowl, losing your starting quarterback, those are serious consequences of a probation.
Yeah, and then you just add on the coaches that are now in the West. And that's my other point I wanted to ask you. A couple of years ago, you were talking about how the SEC could basically cannibalize itself for the playoffs. Do you see that now? Do you see that now? You got Jimbo Fisher, you got Gus, and Nick Saban. I mean, a couple of years from now, if they're all there, I can see that being, you could have 2 or 3 top teams in the West, and only one of them is going to come out.
Yeah, I mean, it could happen. I mean, I don't want to belittle or minimize Jimbo Fisher's hiring because I do think it's quite significant. But Kevin Sumlin was also a pretty major player. He did beat Alabama. He has been competitive. So. I think you just have to look at it and go, those things are always possible, but it's a proven fact you can lose a game in the SEC now, and I think that's really what keeps the SEC alive. Yeah, you can't lose more than that unless you're Auburn this year, and you have the really truly unbelievable ability to have beaten 2 number 1 teams. Thank you, but yeah, I mean. I think the cannibalization is alive and well, but things are cyclical, and one program goes up, another one goes down. Right now in the SEC West, you basically have one program that has not been competitive the last 2 years, and that is Arkansas. Beyond that, I would say everyone else has done something. I mean, even Ole Miss this year, as average as they were, beat Mississippi State, which was an upper division team. Thanks for the call. Do appreciate it. Chip is up next in Dalton, Georgia. Hello, Chip. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Paul. Been about 3 years I've tried to get through to talk to you.
I'm glad you finally made it. Thank you.
I'm going to give you a pat on the back. I've got a 5-year-old. Every day she lays down about 3 o'clock for a nap. She says, I'll be going to watch Paul.
That is amazing. Thank you.
So I just wanted to tell you that I enjoyed your show.
That is fantastic.
Disabled, and I found out through your show the last 3 years when I'm not able to work. But I had back surgery and everything, but I didn't call to talk about me.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. As someone who's dealt with some back issues, I'm thinking about you. It's not fun.
Oh, it's not. But anyway, I wanted to ask you about the college playoffs. I know it's already set with the 4 teams, but wouldn't you think that some of the Auburn callers would be a little outraged since they beat 2 number 1 teams like Georgia and Alabama, and then Alabama slips in the back door?
Yeah, I mean, I think even bigger than that is the idea that Georgia that Auburn beat Georgia, but I think everyone knows the rules, and I don't think Auburn fans can be too disappointed. They were rolling the dice anyway with 2 losses, albeit to Clemson and Georgia. Only the number 1 in 3 teams in the country. But I mean, it has to be a little frustrating, yeah. But they had an opportunity and they didn't take advantage of it.
But my thing was, I thought they was going to pick the 4 best teams at the time instead of, I know.
Yeah, the problem though is when you lose a game like Auburn lost, it really hurts your standing. And I think the fact that it was their 3rd loss, in my mind, eliminated that. Hey, listen, glad you made it in the show. I really I hope you can navigate that back issue. Appreciate it very much. We will take a break. Mike Bianchi is coming up here in a couple of minutes. Outspoken columnist in Florida and talk show host. We'll talk to him about life after Jimbo at Florida State. Didn't think that was ever going to happen based on what Mike has told us. Jimbo Fisher going to the lowly SEC? Are you kidding me?
Hey girl, have you done something new with your scales? Using new moisturizer? Nice. It really brings out the hazel in your eyes. Oh, hold on. Are you using whitening strips too? Your fangs look good, girl. Really good.
A really charming snake charmer? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
Wait, what? Have you been doing Pilates too?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
We were talking about Jimbo Fisher during the break, and let's get some reaction from the Sunshine State from Mike Bianchi, who has been with us many, many times before, often opining about Jimbo Fisher. Do you remember one of Mike's columns on Jimbo Fisher talking about the fact that he would not be heading to anywhere? This was November 7th. We don't have to go back 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. This was November 7th, 2017. By my calculation, that was 1 month and 4 days ago. Mike Bianchi writing in the Orlando Sentinel, Jimbo Fisher is not going to Texas A&M. Okay, let's see if we think Jimbo went, didn't we? I watched the press conference. Mike, welcome to the show. Good afternoon. Happy holidays.
Yeah, Paul. Yeah, I was waiting for this call. I've been waiting for this for a couple, at least for 10 days now since Jimbo, bailed on Florida State. I apologize for thinking Jimbo would have more pride than to quit after such a horrible season.
Ooh, that hurt.
Yeah.
So I'm more interested, we all know he left. I'm more interested in your thought process then and even 2 years ago when he danced with LSU, why you did not think Jimbo would leave Florida State.
Because the people I talked to at Florida State thought that this was just another Jimbo sort of power grab at Florida State. He dances every year. He always comes up with something to try to get more from Florida State, and I think that that's what they thought this was. And obviously, when Texas A&M made Jimbo the biggest offer in college football history, I guess Florida State said, "Hey, we're not going to match that after the season you just coached," and I don't blame him. I mean, Jimbo Fisher has gotten everything that he's asked for at Florida State for years. I mean, yes, Texas A&M has great facilities. There's no question about that. But Florida State was building Jimbo every facility he wanted. They gave him every bit of staffing that he wanted. They paid his assistant coaches what he wanted, and Florida State gave and gave and gave. And after a 5-6 season, they weren't about to match Texas A&M, nor should they have.
I am interested, Mike. Listen, we all believe certain things, and I know you, and I say this out of many years of friendship. You wouldn't have said that or reported that if you didn't believe it. I mean, you've got a long reputation, but in terms of the breaking point, what do you think it was? What do you think pushed Jimbo Fisher to take this job where he's turned down a lot of jobs in the past?
Well, I think the LSU job was a better job than Texas A&M, and I know Texas A&M people don't like to hear that, but I think LSU was a better job. I don't know that they were offering Jimbo Fisher the contract that Texas A&M gave him, but LSU, in my opinion, was a better job. If he was going to take a job, I would have thought that would have been the job. But again, Texas A&M is a perennially underachieving program, and I think Jimbo Fisher sees the opportunity there to sort of start anew, to build his own legacy. Let's face it, at Florida State, Bobby Bowden's always going to be the father of Florida State football, the creator of Florida State football, even though Jimbo Fisher upgraded the program and rebuilt it after Bobby let it go, let it slide for all those years. So I think that's probably, the obviously it was a cash grab, and when he got the cash and he had a chance to sort of start anew, and I do think he bailed on Florida State.
Well,
I don't think
Mike, come on. Do you blame him for taking the money?
Do I blame him for taking?
Well, I mean, you've used the phrase "bailed" a couple of times, like he snuck out of town.
Well, look, Paul, if he were 12-1 in the college football playoff right now, I don't think he's the next coach at Texas A&M. I think he saw his program was cracking a little bit. He was 5-6. he was getting some heat about his assistant coaches, and the administration wanted him to fire some assistant coaches. So yeah, I think he bailed, because if he had a good season this year, I don't think he takes the job. No. So in my opinion, that's bailing.
Okay, well, we'll agree that those are your words. Do you think
he would have gone if he were 12-1 in the college football playoff?
Well, of course, nobody would have gone under those circumstances.
Okay. Then you're getting out while the getting's good. That defines bailing out.
Again, I realize you've had the same job for a long time, and that's commendable. Very few people stay put.
I will say this, though. If the SEC network offered me Paul Finebaum money, I would bail right now.
I would encourage you to as well. Just kidding. I feel like I know you, and I'm hearing some things in your voice. Do you think this was a good decision for him, forgetting the money? And I know you can't just say forget $75 million, but if he's not successful, then it's not a good decision.
Yeah, obviously it's more money. It's a chance to start anew, but call me a Florida homer, a provincial Sunshine State homer if you want, but I think Florida State, taking the money out of it, I think Florida State is a better job. I think he had a chance and has a chance to be more successful at Florida State. I think he's banging his head against the wall in the SEC West. Maybe he wants that challenge. I don't know, but I just think Florida State is a better job than Texas A&M. Florida State has won multiple national championships. They've won multiple conference championships. I don't know when the last time Texas A&M won a conference title. I believe it was when they were in the Big 12 under R.C. Slocum. And, their last national title was, 77 years ago? And again, maybe Jimbo Fisher wants to be the guy that brings them the glory, but good luck getting through Alabama, LSU, and that SEC West.
You do think, do you not, a lot of his ability as a head coach?
Oh, yeah, I think Jimbo Fisher's a terrific head coach. He's a terrific recruiter. Obviously, he was, other than Nick Saban and maybe Urban Meyer, he was probably the top recruiter in college football over the last 5 or 6 years. So, yeah, he's a terrific recruiter. He knows how to build a program and organize a program. I've always compared Jimbo Fisher to an NFL coach, even though he's he has that West Virginia accent and sort of that country boy image. Jimbo Fisher runs a sophisticated, state-of-the-art college football program. I think he's going to be a terrific coach at Texas A&M, and I think he'd be a terrific NFL coach as well.
Talking to Mike Bianchi, let me get your thoughts. We haven't had a chance to talk to you since Dan Mullen landed at Florida. Your thoughts on that, and how do you think he will do in Gainesville?
I think Dan Mullen is a really good hire for Florida simply because he knows what to expect at Florida. Jim McElwain was not the right fit. We all know that now in hindsight. Dan Mullen knows the pressure at Florida. He's been in it. He knows how to develop quarterbacks, which is something McElwain couldn't do, Will Muschamp couldn't do. The last quarterback the Gators developed was Tim Tebow, and that was Dan Mullen doing the developing. So I think it's a really good hire for Florida, especially in a time when we're seeing at Tennessee and some of these other schools that it's hard to hire a really good coach, and I think Florida grabbed Dan Mullen while they could.
Yeah, you mentioned Tennessee. Of course, Florida and Tennessee are huge rivals. Jeremy Pruitt to Tennessee, do you think they settled for him, or do you think he is a good enough coach to turn that program around?
I don't know if he's going to be the next Kirby Smart or not. Very few of Nick Saban's disciples have really, when you look at it, Jimbo Fisher was a Nick Saban disciple. He made it. It looks like Kirby Smart is going to make it at Georgia, although let's see what he does for the long haul. But some of the others, Will Muschamp, Derek Dooley, Jim McElwain, those are all Nick Saban disciples too, and they didn't make it. So, again, I don't know if I think they settled for Jeremy Pruitt because it was getting the coaching search was starting to take a long time, and I do think schools like Tennessee, all schools, in my opinion, schools like Tennessee, Florida, I think a lot of the fan base have way too high opinion of their job and think they can just lure in, like John Gruden's going to come. Florida thought they were getting Chip Kelly. That didn't happen. So, I think these schools sometimes have to settle for the best. I think Florida settled on Jim McElwain 3 years ago.
Before you go, you cover the SEC, you cover a lot of college football, but you also spend a lot of time in the ACC. Frame the semifinal game between Alabama and Clemson for us.
Well, you know, it's funny that Alabama goes in. To me, it's funny anyways. Probably not to you. Well, to you guys too, because Alabama's the king of college football. Nick Saban is the king of college football, and now Alabama goes in as sort of the. Are they the Cinderella story in these playoffs now? They seem like the, you know, the heavy underdog in this game, and that, to me, that's dangerous. If Alabama, with all of that talent they've recruited over the years, for them to be considered an underdog. But, you know, when you look at what Clemson's done over the last 3 or 4 years, Alabama probably should be the underdog, but obviously you're not going to count Nick Saban out of this game.
Mike Bianchi, thoughts on a number of topics, including Jimbo Fisher bailing on Florida State. Mike, always a pleasure. Thank you for your time.
See you, Paul.
Yeah, you can tell Mike obviously not handling that very well, was he? Man, kind of upset. Yeah, Jimbo's going to stay at Florida State, a school that has basically slipping to Clemson the last 3 years. A school that pretty much said, hey, by the way, we're not giving you any more money. We've given you all you need, and another school is offering him $75 million. So I'm going to stay there. That's bailing? Not in my dictionary. That's making the most out of an opportunity. We'll take a break. More of your phone calls after this. Rick, you there?
I am here. How
good
are
to
you?
hear from you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, too, and a good afternoon, and hello to the fellows there in the booth. Two topics. I had something else I wanted to talk to you about, but two topics while I'm waiting here. Number one, did you see the NFL ruling that there'll be no suspensions off that Seattle debacle last night?
I did see that.
Now, Paul, you explain to me. Bennett stirred it up by going low ball, and by the way, Seattle's been known to do this before. They had altercations. That was one thing. That stirred up the emotions. Now, I'm not defending people throwing things at the players. That is out of line, and hopefully they'll track those people down and get some justice out of that. But this guy tried to climb into the stands and stir it up, and you're telling me the league is not taking actions on any of that?
Well, first of all, the NFL doesn't have a commissioner anymore. The commissioner of the NFL is way too busy trying to negotiate $50 million a year contracts and jet planes for life, so he doesn't have time to watch the games on the field.
It's unbelievable. And then, of course, they're talking about the act of violence, but you're allowing this melee. Oh, anyway, that's why the NFL's numbers are down. And we talked about that a week ago. The other thing is about Mr. Bianchi. Look, first of all, I don't want to hear about Lee Corso or Burt Reynolds in the 50s. Florida State in the late 50s were known for their gymnastics. They were top ranked, okay? Bobby Bowden, as you know, and any older person knows, came in and built that program to be a powerhouse. And like you said before you went on break, Jimbo then brought it back up. It slipped a little and brought it back up and did a heck of a job. As far as, like you said, him so-called bailing out, he could have bailed out before and he didn't. You're offered that kind of money, what are you supposed to do? But let's talk about Florida State. How about Taggart bailing out on Oregon?
Exactly.
And as far as settling on a coach,
you know, Rick, and I know a lot of people have praised Taggart, and he quoted his son wanting to be close. Yeah, that's all great. What about the young men that he misled and encouraged to go to the University of Oregon, and he bailed on them? Somebody that leaves after 1 year is the worst.
That's the bail job, Paul.
And that is. I just cannot imagine ever going someplace and leaving after 1 year. It's just incredible. It's insane, and good for him at Florida State. I hope he's happy. That's his dream job. Well, he should have thought about that last year.
Well, Paul, I'll just say this. If he can recruit everywhere he's gone, he had, in fact, I think Oregon up to the top 10 before he bailed out.
Yeah,
he'll get players, and
he did
have
bail.
rich
Jimbo
players.
didn't bail. Jimbo raised the standards at at Florida State after Bobby Bowden let them slip. Let's be honest. The program was a shell of itself. He won a national championship. He got to the playoffs again. And, you don't have to like the way he did it, and I frankly didn't at times. But he had every right to leave.
Oh, I totally agree. You're offer that kind of money in today's business. What are you supposed to say? No, I'm
going to stay where they've already told me don't come looking for more.
Yeah, there you go. But I will just say this: Florida State will have athletes, but I got questions if Taggart could take them to that level that Jimbo had him at or Bobby.
I will tell you right now, he will not. He is going to live in Dabo Swinney's shadow. And I don't have any doubt Willie Taggart is a very good recruiter, but he's going to find the going a little more difficult this time around at Florida State because Florida State has slipped. Rick, you know that, and I know that. Thanks for the call. I do appreciate it. Let's talk to Christian next up in Tennessee. How are you, Christian?
I'm doing well. Paul, how are you, sir?
We're doing great. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for taking my call. I just had a quick question. Of course, you got your degree was in political science, correct?
That is correct, yeah.
Okay. And, of course, your accolades go on and on. I used to listen to you when I was going to the University of Alabama in the late 90s. And since then, I've moved to Franklin, Tennessee. But it's just great and to be able to get through. I tried for years to get through, and finally you guys take my call. So much appreciated. My question is, when you came out of UT with your degree, what was there a main mentor of yours, or kind of who did you look up, like the kids that are getting out of college today might look up to you?
That's an interesting question. I'm not sure I have a concrete answer in terms of what a lot of people would give. I mean, there were a number of sports writers that I came out as a sports writer, not a broadcaster, that I admired and talked to, and Tony Kornheiser was actually one of them in terms of people I studied and tried to emulate. Really, the most influential person in my career was somebody who had no training in my career or no expertise, and it was my mother. She was the one that encouraged me and motivated me. I lost my dad when I was 15, and she had the most profound impact on whatever I accomplished from that moment on. It was not a straight shot. It took me a long time to be able to walk down the street without tripping, so to speak, and I mean that in the context of my career. But she was always my inspiration.
I understand. Well, I appreciate the information. I was just very curious about that. And before I hang up, on the lighter note, I did find a picture of you in 1982. I'm sure you've seen it with a group of other writers and columnists with Barry Bryant. Man, you got to bring the full beard back.
It's interesting, Christian. That is a famous picture in my life because it was taken the morning of Coach Bryant's last game in Memphis, and I wasn't really supposed to be there. My old boss, and he is someone who did mentor me, I should have mentioned, a man named Bill Lumpkin, at the very last moment said, hey, Bill was always like, hey, you want to walk down the hall with me to Coach Bryant's having a... I'm like, what? I'm this young reporter, and I get to go down to Coach Bryant's suite. And we ended up, he did a farewell interview, and he took that picture. And for those who have seen the picture, you'll have a hard time figuring out who I was. I think I'm not complimenting myself because I can look in a mirror too. I think I may look younger today than I did in that picture.
Well, it said third from the right, so I went from the left, and I thought that's not him.
No, I've had friends of mine guess the wrong person. I had a beard. Thanks so much for the call, Christian. I had a beard in that. You may have seen this picture. That I looked like I don't want to say anything because it would be someone would take it the wrong way. But I looked pretty dangerous. I would be stopped walking down the street with that beard. Anyway, great stuff. We'll take a break. More of your phone calls at 855-242-7285. Be back. Glad you're here. More guests to come. We've had some good ones so far. Lou is up next. What do you say, Lou?
Paul.
Yes.
Good morning, sir. Look here, this Matt from Gainesville, they're coming out the woodwork. But anyway, is there a worse type of person than somebody that wants to question somebody else's fanhood, Paul?
Actually, there I could think of a few more degrees of bad and evil.
What about it doesn't involve criminal activity, though?
Yeah, okay.
But look here. I get this all the time, Paul. Paul, do they take diplomas at the gate or tickets to get in?
Usually tickets. I've never gone to a game yet where they check your diploma.
If the only people that showed up at a football home game was graduates, the stadiums would be half the size they are.
That is correct.
Now, listen, I would never question anybody else's fanhood, ever. That includes Matt from Gainesville. Whoever that jamoke is, I don't know. But listen, the point is, fans come in all different shapes and sizes, Paul.
They do.
I don't have season tickets. I don't go to every game. If I could afford it and didn't have an 8-year-old and a 7-year-old, I'd probably go to a few more, like I did when I was a little younger. But I get up there when I can, and if this Matt from Gainesville was watching YouTube every day like he's supposed to, he would know that. But he's not, so he needs to do a little bit better. But anyway, Paul, I ain't called you in a while. Still watch the show every day, though.
I'm glad to hear that, Lou. Appreciate the contribution. Good to hear from you. Let's continue with more calls. Chris is in North Carolina. Hey, Chris. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon.
Glad to hear from you.
Hey, we're in ACC country in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Wow.
And I just want to let you know we are, according to one of your previous callers, we're one of your dwindling fan base.
Yeah, you're right now. I believe you're the last one. You're in Wilmington, of course, famous place, hometown of Michael Jordan, right?
Yeah. And but we watch your show, and
thank
we
you
enjoy it.
By the way,
much.
when you turn the show off tonight, you will be the last one to watch it. Is that the old line? The last person to leave town, please turn out the lights.
But no, we're big ACC fans, and I grew up in Big Ten country.
Sure.
And so.
Our deepest condolences for living in Big Ten country.
But I've learned a lot about the SEC watching your show.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, I realize the name of the network is the SEC network, but this show is not to be confused with anything other than just pure entertainment.
Oh yeah, and but my husband.
I mean, this is basically
the
afternoon version of Kelly and Ryan.
But
Kelly's not here today.
Question. Considering Carolina, he's a huge Carolina fan.
Oh, so am I.
And
nothing could be finer.
Well, North Carolina, not Scarf.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But considering all the injuries that happened with North Carolina this year, he was wondering what your opinion was on Larry Fedora's life expectancy.
I've always liked Larry Fedora. This was a pretty bad year. I think he can straighten it out, don't you?
Yes, I do.
You're a Carolina fan?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Okay. This was a rough year. They did have that big win at Pittsburgh, wasn't it? I think they won at Pittsburgh this year. Something Miami didn't do. Gene is up next. Hey, Gene. Good afternoon.
Hey, how you doing, Paul? Long-time listener ever since you were in Birmingham and had the mayor in her and all that good stuff.
Wow, thank you very much.
Days. Hey, I just had to make a statement real quick and then maybe a question. I think this is one of Saban's best coaching years that I've seen. I mean, I've suffered through Mike Dubose, Mike Price, Mike Shula, Coach Fran.
Remember the three Mikes in a row?
Yes, the three-headed monster named Mike. Yes,
yeah.
sir. And,
Alabama had three consecutive coaches named Mike, and each was worse than the other.
That's right. But anyway,
let me take it back. Actually, there was a Dennis the Menace in the middle of that, but don't count him.
Yeah, I hate to admit it, but I went to two different Arby's to try to find the Coach Fran bobblehead that had the gray shirt on, and oh my gosh,
I've got one that's I've got one that's slightly scarred. We all burned them when he left.
But my question is what do you think Alabama needs to do to kind of get, not to get Kiffin to go away, but just to make it where he's relevant on his own grounds rather than, like right now, he sounds like the ex-girlfriend. He's like, he just, Saban gave him a promise ring and all this stuff, and he just won't quit talking about it. And I think that's really why his name's not coming up for these big jobs, is because he's kind of showing the immaturity.
No, I think you're right. I mean, Kiffin, ex-girlfriend, ex-wife, ex-husband, I don't know what Kiffin is, but, Kiffin is entertaining, but to a point.
And then I had one last thing on Jeremy Pruitt. Tennessee fans are probably going to hate me, but he's in a terrible situation because when Kirby Smart took over Georgia, Mark Richt had that car finally.
We're back with much more. Paul Finebaum here. In the South, we love football and Crystal. The hot off the grill Crystal burger is the perfect complement to any tailgate. Take a steamer pack of 24 Crystals to your tailgate. Why didn't I think of that? Plus, Crystal knows you love wings. Barbecue or buffalo wings, Crystal is the stop for all of your cravings this fall. Text Paul, that is P-A-U-L, to 37793, and Crystal will hook you up with 2 free Crystals. Nobody does football like the South, and nobody does tailgates like Crystal. We welcome all of you back to the program. Glad you are here on a Monday afternoon. More guests to come, and we've had some good ones already. More of yours to join us at 855-242-7285. Let's check in next with Scott, who is in Charleston. Scott, welcome. Good afternoon.
Hey, Paul. How you doing? Good show as usual.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I just wanted to make a comment about the guy you talked to earlier about the coaching situation with Jimbo Fisher.
Yeah.
I'm an ACC guy. I'm one of Dabo's crew, but and you made some valid points about Jimbo. But here is the perfect example of why there's nothing wrong with what Jimbo did. Look at Mark Richt. Here was a guy that did everything as according to everybody, my son's the biggest Georgia fan in the world. He hated it when Mark Richt left. But you know what? It was the best thing for both. Mark Richt put a program back on its feet, and look where Georgia's at now. So sometimes, I think it just works out. Sometimes it's the best thing, to part ways and start afresh.
No, listen, a lot of people in the past had jobs 20, 30, 40 years. And what I've found in meeting people and getting to know people in various professions, after a while, it's a very difficult thing to maintain. And in coaching, the fact that, Jimbo's been there, 10 years? He's won a title. Those it's hard to sustain that. That's
one place.
That's
people don't even keep their 401ks.
No.
That long anymore. So,
especially when Nick Saban is an exception because he's at an age where now he is unlikely to be going somewhere else, and he's also won 4 national championships. But Jimbo Fisher, you're just a bad year away from people doubting you, and he's also had personal problems. He's gone through a divorce, which I've never gone through it, but I have plenty of friends who have, and especially when it involves children. It can be unbelievably painful, and sometimes you just do need to wake up and see something different in the morning.
Right, I'm not going to judge a man until I've walked a mile in his shoes.
No, exactly. So I've never doubted why he may want to leave.
Well, $75 million was a pretty good choice.
Well, yeah, I didn't want to bring that up, but that's probably the main reason. Somebody asked me. If somebody said, "Do you like your job?" I said, "Yeah," but I can think of 75 million reasons why I could find some other job. Come on. Here's what I admire about Scott Woodward and Texas A&M. They didn't waste any time. They called Jimbo, or they called his agent, and they said, we are going to offer him a job, and we are going to offer him $75 million. Now, most negotiations, you start at this number, and then you're looking. It's like, everybody's bought a car. Okay, you walk in the car dealership. The car is what, $30,000? I'll give you 20. You're trying to bid it at 25, right?
We'll take 28.
Jim, and then the guy says, let me go talk to my boss. I think he's in a good mood today. No, I mean, Scott Woodward basically said, we're offering you $75 million. We're not offering you 76. We're not going to 70. Just here it is. Take it. And Jimbo said, ooh, I'm taking it. Because Florida State didn't say, well, hold on a second, Jimbo. Maybe we could sit down. Maybe we could have a conversation. Maybe we could accommodate. They basically said, we're not dealing with you. If you want to take it, go ahead. So that's usually, I've been there before. People say, don't think we're going to offer you that kind of money. Well, good. I'll just go where they are, where I feel wanted. Right, Bobby? You've been there before, right?
How you doing today, buddy?
I am doing great, Bobby.
Boy, you fall in love with your coach, boy. I can see it next season. Jimbo Fisher.
Bobby, you just don't like me liking anyone but your guy.
Hey, last year was Dan Mullen.
Hey, look what happened to Dan Mullen.
And then, hey, you know who it was the year before that, don't you?
Who's that?
Oh, what a great coach Hugh Freeze is.
Well, I did. You know, I did say Hugh Freeze was a great coach, and you know something? He was a great coach.
He was, but I try to tell you.
I can't deal with. I don't know what he's doing when he's not coaching.
Yeah. Hey. You know why your boy left? He left for the money. You know that, don't you?
Who's that? Jimbo?
Which one? Yeah. Hey, left for the money.
Hey, Bobby, do I look? I mean, listen. Don't answer this question. Do I look stupid?
No.
Of course, I know why he left.
If you were stupid, Paul, I wouldn't be calling.
I mean, yeah, I know why. I know why he left. And you heard me say countless times I believe Dan Mullen was going to leave because Dan Mullen looked around, and as much as he loved Mississippi State, and there's a lot to love there, he knew there was a lot of money elsewhere.
Everybody love American money. You can do something with American money that you can't do with no other kind of money. You can take American money and spend it anywhere in the world.
You're right. You can invest it in China or...
But you ain't even got to change it to yen.
Well, yeah, exactly.
You pull it out. The first thing they say, oh, American money.
American money.
American money.
We like that. We like American money.
Don't you? But I'm going to tell you what your boy got to do when he go to Texas A&M. He got to recruit a defense outside the state of Texas. He can't have nobody on his defense from Texas. Because they do not play defense in Texas. You know that?
You know, Bobby, one of these days you're going to be talking about some other coach, and that other coach is going to be on top.
Yeah. Well, I ain't got long left no way, Paul, so it won't be in my lifetime.
Might be Kirby Smart this year.
Kirby, good coach. I pull for Kirby.
I know you do.
Right.
How are you going to feel if Kirby plays Nick for the championship?
Well, you know what happened.
You're going to say, we'll let the best man win?
No, he's an understudy. You know what happened to understudy.
Understudies, well, you know 11 times on the understudy has lost to the master.
Yeah. But I'm going to tell you something, Paul. As far as the defensive players, like they say, you can take bricks and build an in-house, but you can't take it and build a what? A brick house.
A brick house, yeah. Hey, by the way, right. Brick House was a great song by the Commodores.
Yeah, I knew a couple of them boys.
Did you?
Yeah.
That's funny. I got to introduce them at a concert a couple of years, a charity concert. They are one interesting group of people.
Well, my wife's great grandfather founded Tuskegee Institute.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Well, his name was Lewis Adams. They say Booker T. Washington founded, but he was the first principal.
Oh, okay.
They sent and got it. I got all the information.
No, I spent about 20, 30 minutes with the Commodores a couple of years ago in Birmingham. There was remember the charity concert for the tornado, and I was asked to introduce, and they came out and sang Brick House, and man, was that exciting.
Well,
boom.
I used to see them at a place called the Patterson Inslee for $2.
Oh, my goodness. I imagine you saw some big names back in the day.
Oh, yeah, the Temptations.
Oh.
Yeah,
that's my imagination.
Yeah. But look, Paul, I ain't going to hold you. I'm going to say this, Paul, and I'm going to let you go. Ain't no show like this show, near this show. This must be the show.
This is the show. Hey, thanks, Bobby. Man, Bobby knew the Commodores back in the day when Lionel was in the Commodores. They've done okay without Lionel. And Lionel's done okay without them.
Exactly.
Let's see. We're still on the air. Let's keep going. Jake is up next. Not that I'm looking at the clock. But it is 5 o'clock. Somewhere. Jake, go right ahead.
Hello, Paul. This is Jake from Oxford.
Oh, great to hear from you.
I was wondering, what do you think Georgia's chances are of beating Alabama? Do you think that our front seven can put pressure on Hurts?
No, Jake, hold on a second. Jake.
Yes, sir.
You're asking me and honestly asking me about Alabama meeting Georgia? I mean, you can't wait to get through the Clemson game. You got to look ahead to Georgia.
Oh, Clemson's been spotty all year long.
Okay, I mean, I don't want to sound like your dad here or something, but I mean, take one game at a time.
No, I mean Clemson. They haven't been consistent enough. I mean they've struggled with good defenses.
And Jake, and Alabama has. Did you see Alabama down the stretch?
I mean they were hurt. You're down. You lose
they were hurting. Okay.
Linemen, any offense is going to look good. I mean, I just don't think that Clemson has the offense to beat.
I mean, so an Alabama fan is already looking ahead to Georgia.
No. I'm a Georgia fan.
Or Georgia fans already looking ahead.
I looked at every game all year.
That's even worse.
But I mean, you can. You're
looking right past you're looking right past Oklahoma and Baker Mayfield.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, look at the Iowa State game. I mean, they have a mediocrity defense, and it's just
pretty mediocre.
I don't see him mediocre. Yeah, but it's mediocrity. It's not even mediocre.
No, you're right. By the way, you were right the first time. There is a lot of mediocrity there on defense.
I mean, I just think that Baker Mayfield, if you make him have to put passes in certain spots, he's not going to be able to do it. I mean, look at all the games he's won this year. None of them have been like 17-10 or 24 to.
Well, I mean, the game against Oklahoma State was a shootout. Now again, it was like 62-54, but he did have to bring them back.
If you look at it, I mean, defensively, he can't score against defenses, and I mean that's what one thing that Kirby Smart prides himself on is a good defense, and I just think Clemson's not going to be able to do it. I mean, you look at Bama in any other situation, they'll lose once, but they're not going to lose twice. And I think Kirby's kind of instilling that in Georgia, what he has this year. And I think it's going to be Georgia and Alabama all the way, without a doubt.
Jake, I hope it is. I'm not admonishing you for looking ahead, but I got enough on the smorgasbord for the first round of games.
But I'm saying, so if you pair them up, who do you think would win? I mean, I'm just
I can't answer that question until I see the semifinal games. Because I really would like to see what Alabama's all about, whether they get, it's one thing getting players back. It's another thing having those players look healthy and executing.
Yes, sir.
So I think you can sense where my doubts might be.
Yes, sir. I understand.
But we will. I'm hoping 3 weeks from tomorrow. Actually, 3 weeks from tomorrow, the championship game will be over. 2 weeks from tomorrow, we're having this conversation. How about that?
Yes, sir. I will call you back.
Okay. Because 3 weeks from today, I'm hoping we're leading into that game. And I'm remembering your call going, let's break down this Alabama-Georgia game. Can you imagine? 2 SEC teams playing for the national championship. Did it ever happen before? We'll take a short break. Much more to come.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I'm so happy, I feel like I can fly.
Disclaimer, you will not be able to fly by switching to Geico. This is against the laws of physics and nature. If you find yourself flying, please seek professional and or medical help immediately. In the unlikely event you find yourself flying, you might be a superhero, or a pigeon, or a superhero named Pidgewoman, who was bitten by a radioactive pigeon. If you are indeed Pidgewoman, Geico retains all licensing publishing rights in the event Pidgewoman the movie becomes a top-grossing Hollywood blockbuster.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Welcome back to our program. Let's continue with more calls. And Ned is up next. Ned, go right ahead.
Hey, Paul.
Hey there, Ned.
You're not going to believe this. Tell old Bobby everything's funny when you got plenty of money.
Everything's what?
everything's funny when you got plenty of money.
You're
Jimbo
right.
Fisher. Hey, everybody's laughing when you got money. I know you're laughing.
I was laughing, yeah.
No doubt about it. Do you know why Fulmer hired Pruitt?
Not specifically, no.
Can I tell you what I think?
I'd love to hear it, sure.
Hey, man, I love you, too. You're a great show, by the way, man.
Thank you.
Sam Farlow told me to tell you hello.
Oh, my goodness. Hey, you talk about a great golfer right there. Sam Farlow, I think, won the Alabama State Amateur about 6 times.
Hey, Paul, when people tell me how well I play, you know what I tell them?
What's that?
It's a little bit better than Sam.
You played better than Sam?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I'll tell you a story about Sam. Sam was on the Pro Tour one day. We were in a one of these scrambles, and we came down to the last hole, which was about a 300-yard par 4. It was a really short course. Sam drove the hole.
I'm a little bit longer than Sam, too.
Well, again, this was Sam was. So, did you play professional golf?
I am a professional golfer.
Okay, well, there you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then you probably are better than Sam.
I worked at Birmingham Country Club as a teaching professional.
Oh, my goodness.
When I was 19 years old, I beat Sam in a golf tournament, invitational golf tournament. And but anyways, I love Sam.
Was that the era when Hubert Green was playing there too?
No, I'm not that old.
Okay, Sam was okay. This was after that. So Sam was just playing. Okay, I get it. I'm sure Hubert really appreciated that.
Sam is 16 years older than me.
Okay, well, I get it. Okay. I saw Sam about a year ago. Sam was one of my. By the way, Sam was not only a professional golfer, he was a professional caller to this show.
Yes, he was. I remember.
His nickname was Carphone Bill.
Sam's a good friend of mine. I worked at Birmingham Country Club, and so I saw Sam, every day.
Well, that was it still is. It's certainly one of the best courses around.
Oh, no doubt about it. And tell Jimbo Fisher with his first wife. His first wife was probably like mine. She could straddle a broomstick and it'd fly.
Yeah, well, I have met Jimbo's only wife, I think, and.
I met my first wife, and I guarantee you, man, it went through the ceiling.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine tell me. They said, you know what you're. I mean, because I used to speak a lot, and you would tell jokes, and the guy told me, he said, you know what you're missing from your repertoire, an ex-wife. And anyone who has an ex-wife, I mean, there's just a million jokes, and I can't. I don't have any of those jokes.
When I was at Birmingham Country Club, you remember the All-American Bowl that was played there?
Oh, sure.
Spurrier was with Duke.
Yeah, no, that was like 1989 or something.
It was 1989.
Yeah.
And who did they play? Do you remember?
They played Florida.
No, they played Texas Tech.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm positive.
Okay.
Because I played golf with the guy, and he gets on the first tee, and he says,
well, maybe you're right.
I want to play for him. I said, Steve, make it light on yourself, man. I'll play for you, for whatever you want to play for.
Oh, so Steve was trying to, he didn't realize who you were?
No.
Wow.
No. I beat him 5 ways. And I was playing with the banker. It was the bank that sponsored that bowl, you remember?
I do remember the bank. I can't remember the name of it.
I think I want to say it's All-American Bank, but that's not right. But anyways, I beat Spurrier 5 ways, and I told him, I said, Steve, we're in the 19th hole, in the 19th hole.
Oh, sure. No, I've been there.
Yeah. Great black-eyed peas and
oh, yeah. No, I used to, a friend of mine used to take a couple of us there all the time.
So we're in there, and I said, Steve, and I'm 24, maybe 25 in 1990 or 89. That's right, it was 89. I said, Steve, I've never been on the sidelines of a football game, a college football game. I said, do you think that you could get me on the sidelines with you? Man, he was pissed off because, he was mad because...
No, there's no way he's going to let you on the sidelines after you beat him in golf.
No, he said these bankers might could get you on the sideline. Of course, I already had 50-yard line tickets.
Yeah.
And so I decided, well, I bought me a Texas Tech cap, and I put $500 on Texas Tech. And if you remember, Texas Tech killed Duke.
Yeah, the Spurrier was already going to Florida. It was pretty distracting, if I remember.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Man, I love you. I love your show.
Thank you. What a great story.
But Fulmer, let me go back to Fulmer.
Okay.
Fulmer hired Pruitt, number one, to distract Alabama. And number two is because of his ego. And we all got egos, man. I mean, ego is what it goes around. But Fulmer wants to have his finger on the program. In my opinion, he should have hired Les Miles. I mean, at least he's beat Saban before. What do you think?
Yeah, I would admit, Ned, the coaching, the search was a little unorthodox. Hey, thank you. The golf stories were great.
Absolutely.
God, I mean, Spurrier, I can just say, yeah, I'll play you. He doesn't realize the guy's a professional. That's so Steve Spurrier. We'll take a break. Barrett Sallee will be joining us shortly. We'll get his take on everything relevant in the world of sports. Coming up with more after this. Welcome back to the. I mean, they don't have a team in the finals for those of you at home. Barrett Sallee joining us as we continue. Barrett, good afternoon. I hope all is well.
I'm great. I'm great, Paul. How are you?
I know the weather where you live wasn't pleasant over the weekend. I hope you were safe.
I was safe, and I'm exhausted for having two kids playing in the snow all weekend. But
Okay.
a little better shape now after that experience.
Well, good. We were just talking about you a minute ago. I'd forgotten. I mean, I know. I follow you on Twitter, and you're always being castigated for getting things wrong. But man, did you ever get it right when it comes to the SEC?
Yeah, I was. Before the season, we do game-by-game predictions. I actually do my helmet schedule game-by-game predictions in Hoover at SEC Media Days, and for the three teams that were in the mix, Alabama, Auburn, and Georgia, I picked every single one of their SEC games right this summer, and had it playing out exactly as it played out. With Georgia beating Auburn in a revenge game in the SEC championship game, with all three basically fighting for playoff spots, and it turns out two of them got in.
That is some pretty good predicting there. And the thing I love about that, it's not after the fact. A lot, we were making fun of somebody that everyone always chimes in after the games with the predictions, but you put it out there for everyone to see.
And then I pin it to my top of my profile, and
Yeah.
people come back and look at it and think it's brand new, which it's not. So, no, I did not have USC in the playoff going into championship weekend because I did have them winning the national championship.
Well, I had Tennessee winning the SEC championship. So,
maybe if Greg Schiano was there.
yeah, that's when I heard he was going. Let's get some thoughts on these coaching hires. We had Bianchi on earlier talking about Jimbo Fisher. He bailed. For $75 million, that's not exactly bailing. How much of a game changer, Barrett, is this hire?
I don't think it's a game changer. I think it's interesting. I think it's definitely a different dynamic to Texas A&M. My opinion of Jimbo Fisher has changed the last year and a half or so. I used to think he would have been a slam dunk home run hire when LSU was flirting with him. But watching Florida State the last few years, his stubbornness sometimes is overbearing. He overcomplicates his offense. And going to Texas, where you've got a bunch of spread kids, you better simplify your offense. And I don't know if Jimbo's willing to do that. And to have that division now with obviously with Nick Saban, what he's doing, LSU, I think, slowly building. Auburn obviously has a head coach now that figured it out. Is Jimbo gonna make it worth their while to pay him $75 million? Because if they're paying him that much money, that means multiple SEC and national championships. And my opinion of Jimbo now is that instead of being a great coach, he's just a really good coach that had a couple of great seasons.
Wow, that's not exactly a ringing endorsement for $7.5 million a year.
Well, I mean, he's still a very good coach, but to make him, basically the SEC's version of Jim Harbaugh, he better coach better than Jim Harbaugh because Texas A&M now expects that, and Kevin Sumlin brought them to a level where, to his credit, The consistency was there. It wasn't where it needed to be. Jimbo needs to win multiple SEC and perhaps national championships, and that's way easier said than done, especially in that neighborhood.
What about Jeremy Pruitt to Tennessee? What do you make out of that?
I like the idea. I like the staff that he's reportedly, sort of assembling there. I want Tennessee fans to be patient with him because he's not Kirby Smart. He doesn't have the pedigree of Kirby Smart, the time under Nick Saban in terms of the specific responsibilities that Kirby Smart had under Nick Saban. And, Kirby Smart inherited the keys to a Ferrari. Jeremy Pruitt inherited the keys to a pretty reliable SUV that needs some TLC to get going again. So even if he has early success, think about some of these coaches that are relatively young or first-time head coaches. Will Muschamp went to a Sugar Bowl in his second year. He was fired 2 years later, and he only started to get it really right now at South Carolina. I think he evolved into a pretty good head coach. Gus Malzahn went to a national championship in his second year as a head coach, first at Auburn. And I think we'd all agree he really didn't learn how to be a complete head coach until last month, like November of 2017. So, it takes a long time. Even if some of these guys do have early success, these young and sometimes first-time head coaches, they have to deal with a lot of things that first-time head coaches don't really know how to handle, even if it's after a pretty high level of success, like Muschamp going to the Sugar Bowl and Gus Malzahn going to the national championship game.
Let me ask you about Malzahn, because Barrett, when we were in Atlanta a week and a half ago, there was a lot of speculation. If he lost that game, he might be on the first G5 to Fayetteville. He didn't go, and Auburn paid him significant change to remain. I realize short term it looks like a very good decision, but do you think it was a good decision for the long haul?
Well, yeah, because that's kind of what the market dictates now. If you're talking about a guy who can get you consistently in the national championship hunt in a really tough division, Gus Malzahn, is that guy, and really was that guy regardless of what happened against Georgia, the first matchup in the Iron Bowl, because 4 out of the last 5 Novembers, we've talked about him being in the national championship hunt. Now, last year, obviously, injuries took their toll. In 2014, they had that upset loss to Texas A&M, I believe, in early November. But they are, they're always in that mix. And in this day and age, the number that he got paid is kind of what a coach with that sort of resume entails. And I never really bought into the Arkansas thing. I certainly knew they were going to ask him, but I thought that if, once Auburn went out there and did what they did at Georgia the first time, he was staying. And they knew that they were going to pay him. It was just a matter of when the deal would actually get done after the Iron Bowl or after the SEC championship game, and specifically how much he would command. And as it turns out, beating the number 1 team in the country 2 times in 3 weeks entails a lot of money.
Barrett, a lot of coaching changes. I won't go down every one because I know you've talked about them here before. You mentioned Jeremy Pruitt, also Malzahn staying, Jimbo Fisher. Of the other ones, which ones do you like, and are there any that leave your eyes rolling and your head scratching?
Well, I really like Dan Mullen at Florida. My opinion of Mullen early on was not very high, but he changed my mind quickly at Mississippi State. And to have, him with those weapons and the potential to recruit those kind of athletes at the University of Florida, especially in a division now where he's the only offensive-minded head coach in that division, that is wildly intriguing to me. I do think it's going to take a couple of years because a lot like Kirby Smart at Georgia when he got that job, the talent at Florida, I think, is a little more underdeveloped than people realize, so it might take him a little while. But I think that could pay huge dividends for them down the road. And Matt Luke at Ole Miss, I get it. I understand it. They're in it for the long haul. They are committing to a long rebuild. That's why they let their players walk. They understand this is going to take a long time, and it's going to be tough for Matt Luke in years 2, 3, and 4. Maybe not next year, depending on who actually transfers outside of Shea Patterson. But they better be committed to some really rough seasons. A lot like Baylor did with Matt Rule. Look what they did this year. Matt Rule was awful in year 1. but they committed a long term to him to let him, get that thing going in his image. And Ole Miss, I think, is kind of following the same path.
Talking to Barrett Sallee, Barrett, a couple of coaches did not get hired this year. One was Les Miles. His name came up by fans for every job. I don't know if he ever even got a phone call. Some people believe Philip Fulmer may have called him. Is he getting back in, or is he done?
He'll get back in at some point because he's a really good coach. I mean, I think his success speaks for itself, and I think the 3 years under Nick Saban really have helped him understand what organizationally needs to be done from a football perspective. But he's also established his own sort of voice to it and his own style. So I think he'll get in. I think he's far less toxic than people want to make him out to be. He had some issues at Tennessee with the NCAA and whatnot, and but leaving for USC, he took his dream job. How many times are you going to say no to your dream job? It's the same reason Willie Taggart left Oregon for Florida State. Florida State call. What's he going to say? No, because he's not going to get a chance to answer that question ever again. So he's brash, he's funny, he's different. But he's a really good coach, and at some point, he's going to get in that mix. And I'm surprised he didn't get more attention this year from SEC ADs. But SEC ADs and really ADs around the country seem to be really, really risk-averse these days.
Speaking of risk-averse, what about Hugh Freeze? What does his future look like?
Well, he wants to be an OC. I know that for a fact, and I think he could make a really good OC anywhere, because calling ball plays is not a problem that he's had, but it doesn't seem like anybody really wants to bite or at least even float his name out there. And that's the thing. That's why I really don't think it's likely for him this year, because you're not really seeing any tangible, evidence of a school having real interest. You're hearing a lot of supposition, or maybe he can go here, or maybe he can go there. But after the Schiano mess at Tennessee, I think a lot of schools realize, hey, it's probably a good idea that to float a name out there through media members to gauge the reaction for coaches who are somewhat toxic, and you're not getting any of that with Hugh Freeze.
What is the problem for Hugh Freeze? Is it the probation, which doesn't seem like it's going to cost him very much, or is it the other stuff?
It's the other stuff, and I think it's lack of really specificity of the other stuff. I think if he just came out there and had an honest moment and got out there and the tears came and he admitted to specifically what all he did.
Exactly.
I think a lot of people would look past it. Look, not to excuse the behavior, but there are a lot of coaches that I wouldn't say do exactly that, but promiscuity happens, and that doesn't excuse the behavior. But it doesn't mean he should be blackballed and not allowed.
No,
to
that's a great answer, Barrett. Because I think you can't have it both ways. You can't talk about how you've straightened your life out without dealing with what brought you down in the first place. One last question. You mentioned Dan Mullen leaving, and to me, I'm really anxious what you have to say. The hiring of Joe Moorhead was just strategic and clean and seamless, and people didn't really or were not that aware of what was going on while it was being done. It was done very quickly, and so far, at least in Starkville, the reception has been very positive. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do, because you had one chance to sort of keep the momentum going. I think Mississippi State recognized what its identity was under Dan Mullen and understood that that's the identity it needed to keep, and you couldn't have handpicked a better option than Joe Moorhead, because when it comes to creative play calling and understanding how to do less with more and how to adjust a system to personnel, he's one of the very best. Dan Mullen's probably a little bit better because he's a little more seasoned, but it's a really good hire. Now, I don't necessarily love his defensive coordinator hire in Bob Shoop, but Moorhead, I think, is a guy who you have the opportunity to build upon your identity from Mississippi State, and you did a pretty good job of that.
Well done. Thank you so much, Barrett. Always a pleasure.
All right, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Great. I mean, he made a really good point, and I don't know. To me, Hugh Freeze, his name has come up for so many OC jobs, and he does need to be back in. I mean, he is an outstanding coach, but I agree completely with Barrett. As long as Hugh Freeze sits at home and has others try to talk for him, I don't think he's going to make much of an impression on the people that really matter. We really haven't heard much from Hugh Freeze, and I think that's strategic. but it also may be deleterious to his future. We'll take a short break. Back with much more. Welcome back to the program. Let's go to Casey in New Jersey. Hello, Casey. Good afternoon.
Yeah, Paul's a golf pro up here in New Jersey. It's great to hear the golf talk on the show.
It's been golf night.
Yeah, I wanted to give you a little insight onto the Tiger Woods question that John raised before.
Okay, sure.
2 weeks ago at the Hero World Challenge, it was a 16-man field, and Tiger Woods finished 10th. Before that tournament started, Las Vegas odds for Tiger Woods to win the Masters next year in 2018 was 150 to 1. After the Hero World Challenge, he's now 20 to 1.
Woo.
Leading the odds are three players at 6 to 1, Spieth, Johnson, and Rory McIlroy. So Las Vegas thinks highly of Tiger Woods possibly doing something at Augusta. My opinion as a golf professional is that would be one of the few tournaments he could still win, only because the course fits his eye, and if healthy, he's still long enough to compete at that golf course and putt the ball like he can putt the ball, which is the key to the Masters. It's almost a putting contest. So, he's coming back. If he's healthy, Paul, and can practice at the level that you need to practice to compete at that level, could he win 4 more majors? No, I don't think he can. Could he win 1 more? Yeah, I think he's got 5 years to win 1 major, or maybe 2, if he stays 100% healthy and is able to practice. Because these young guns out there, are 20 years younger than him that practice every day. And golf's like anything. If you don't put the time in off the on the practice range, on the putting green, 7-8 hours a day, you're not going to show up and beat these young studs that can putt the ball from, anywhere, make any putt that they have to make.
I agree with you on that. And Casey, we've seen it. Nicholas at 58?
46. Yeah, he was 46 years old.
My point is at 58, he actually led the Masters briefly. Watson at 59 was in a playoff for the British Open. He won the Masters at 46. Johnny Miller wasn't he almost 50 when he won Pebble Beach one year?
48 years old.
So, I do think and you know it a lot better than I do. I'm a golf fan. I'm not a professional, but in golf, it doesn't take being great for 3 months. It takes being great for 4 days.
Pretty much. That's true. If you get hot with the putter, last year he played in that Hero World Challenge. He came back after, I think, the 3rd surgery and led the field in birdies for the week and finished last. This year he came back and he was tied for the lead in the middle of the 2nd round. I think it was 8 or 9 under. So, nobody can really do that. Nobody can take a year off, come back to a tour event, play against the best players in the world, whether you think it's an exhibition or not, and have the lead in the 2nd round. That's pretty hard to do. But I just think it was interesting that Las Vegas thinks very highly of him.
That is really interesting.
Yeah. And also, Paul, real quick on the football, Gus Malzahn, I'm an Auburn guy. I don't like the extension. I understand it. They didn't want him to walk. And to be honest with you, if he did walk, I don't know who would have got the job. I don't know who was out there. Who are you going to bring in
Casey,
there?
I'll deal with that a little bit later on. I have a couple of theories on that. What a fantastic conversation with Casey. He's our new golf expert. Paul Finebaum here. In the South, we love football and Crystal. The Hot Off the Grill Crystal Burger is the perfect complement to any tailgate. Take a steamer pack of 24 Crystals to your tailgate. Why didn't I think of that? Plus, Crystal knows you love wings. Barbecue or buffalo wings, Crystal is the stop for all of your cravings this fall. Text Paul, that is Paul, to 37793, and Crystal will hook you up with 2 free Crystals. Nobody does football like the South, and nobody does tailgates like Crystal. More hour to go for this week. Not that we're counting. We're having a good time on a snowy Friday afternoon. We will continue with your phone calls at 855-242-7285. And Rick in Alabama is up next. How are you, Rick?
I'm good, Paul. How are you?
We are doing great. Thank you.
Good. Hey, I was just calling in reference of Jeremy Pruitt. As you know, I live right here in Hoover, Alabama. Hoover High School's at our back door. All 3 of my kids went there. In fact, they were there in the 2-a-days when MTV was there.
Way,
and
congratulations. You guys won the title Thursday night.
Absolutely. Well, I think it was Wednesday night, wasn't it?
Wednesday night, whatever night it was. Yeah, you're right. Today's Friday. It was 2 days ago.
Yeah, won it soundly at 48-20
yeah.
against an undefeated team. And so my question was this. I haven't heard. I listen to you every day. You've got a great show.
Thank you.
And I know Jeremy. I've run into him, said hello to him. He doesn't know me. I don't know him personally. But he was hired, as you know, directly out of Hoover High School as, I think, a players personnel department director or something.
Yeah.
Something like that. But I'm wondering, what about the coach that's been there now? He just won, I think, his 8th state championship title.
Josh Niblett?
Yeah, Josh Niblett. Would you even think Nick Saban might think about pulling him back? He played defensive back at Alabama.
Yeah, let me say this about Josh Niblett. I'm trying to remember where he was before Hoover. He was somewhere in...
I think Opelika.
Yeah, maybe. I can't remember. Maybe in East Alabama somewhere. But anyway, the bottom line is, this guy is one of the greatest high school coaches of all time. I don't know whether he would really want to leave at this point. What people don't understand is that Hoover High School is a university. It looks like one. It acts like one. And the job there, Rush Propst, of course, was Jeremy Pruitt's boss at Hoover.
Right.
And Niblett. Many wondered if anyone could replace Rush Propst, but Niblett has not only replaced him, but he's exceeded his accomplishment. And by the way, he is also just one of the finest coaches in terms of people I've ever met.
He is. He is a great Christian man. And by the way, I see him in a place. We get our haircut at the same place. I see him about once every 3 months, and he doesn't know me personally if I walked in his door, but everybody knows him just like everybody knows Nick Saban if he walked in your door. And I'll just say, hey, Coach, you had a good game last night. And he'll say, thanks to God, everything went great. And I even asked him one time, we were getting our haircut, I said, has Alabama contacted you or any other Division I school about being an offense-defense coordinator? He said no, at this point, no. And I said, if they did, would you take it? And he just kind of looked at me and said, well, I would certainly listen to a phone call. And so, I'm thinking if Jeremy Pruitt can go and get to where he is now at Tennessee, I'm certainly think Josh Niblett could do the same thing.
Yeah. By the way, I think he may have been at Oxford High School before he went to Hoover, but I could be wrong about that. Oxford, which of
I
course
think you're right. But think about his recruiting abilities. Which is really toward Atlanta from Birmingham
in East Alabama.
Right.
Pretty good tradition up there too.
But what about his recruiting abilities?
I don't know how to answer that because I just think on one level, if you go to Alabama, they could lead to what Jeremy Pruitt has led to. But what some people don't understand, and this is Gus Malzahn went through this. Being a high school coach at a place like Hoover or Springdale High School in Arkansas, you're about as big as it gets.
Bill Clark came from a high school
Bill
also,
Clark
now
was
at
in
UAB.
Prattville, Alabama. You're absolutely right. And, it happens. There's no reason why it can't. Chad Morris was a high school coach in Texas. Maybe years ago, but the difference between where Chad was, Southlake and Dallas, Prattville to college football to Hoover, there is not much of a difference between what these guys do and what happens on a college campus.
Yeah. Well, I know I'm pretty sure he'd be an excellent replacement there. Maybe have a little bit to learn or start out where Jeremy did when he first went to Alabama.
Might have to take a pay cut.
I know he makes over six figures. I can say that.
Yeah, the Hoover. If you're coaching someplace like that, you got your own TV show, you got your radio show, you do endorsements. There's a lot that. Of course, Jeremy Pruitt was making close to $2 million a year at Alabama. So I doubt high school coaches pay that.
No.
If they do, I'd like one of those jobs.
I was just curious your thoughts on that.
No,
he has a 7-on-7 tournament every single summer when there's like 45 high schools come in, and every one of those kids know his name.
No, I actually know that, but every year the SEC Media Days, just for the sake of argument, Rick, ends on Thursday. because our show goes late, we ended up staying overnight in Hoover. Now next year it won't be there, but so the Thursday night I'm going up to the room, and every high school I'm on an elevator with every one of these star high school players that come in for that 7-on-7. So I'm very familiar with what happens there in late July. It is a mecca of high school football. Gary in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Can throw a rock and hit Rock Hill from here.
Hey, Paul.
Hey there.
How you doing?
We are doing great. Thank you.
Good. First-time caller. Just wanted to talk to you about the Coach of the Year in the SEC. I think that everybody's kind of got Kirby Smart penciled in. Just want to say that I think he's done a fantastic job, but he went into a cupboard that was pretty full. And my boy at South Carolina, Mr. Will Muschamp, has taken a team that was won 3 games 2 years ago, won 6 games last year, and won 8 this year, and has done it with 70% of the team being sophomores and freshmen. And I think he has done a fantastic job and should be Coach of the Year in the SEC.
Well, listen, it's hard to argue with your information there.
Yeah, like I said, he came in, and of course he doesn't have any 5-star players. Kirby came into us. I heard Steve talking the other day about when he came to Florida, and he was talking about what good players he had when he came in down there, and that helped him, of course, to win the national championship. Kirby's done a good job with the players that he's got, but I think Will Muschamp has done a fantastic job.
He has. 2 weeks. When was it? 2 weeks ago, we were in South Carolina and had a chance to sit down with Will, and he's a great football coach. I'm glad to know. I'm glad to see him make a comeback after that Florida experience, and he has done quite well, and the fans of South Carolina love him. Thanks for the call. Do appreciate it. Let's continue here, and Darian in Tennessee is up next. Good afternoon. Darian, you there?
Hey, what's going on, Paul?
We are doing great. What about you?
Hey, man, what's up? Now, actually, I'm in D.C. I'm in Washington, D.C.,
okay.
But I am from Orange Mound, Memphis, and I went to your
Melrose High School, right?
Yeah, that's Melrose is in Orange Mound,
sure,
but I went to White Station, your alma mater.
Yeah, as you know, I grew up in Memphis, and Orange Mound was where basketball players roamed, and the best basketball players in Memphis came from that area.
Yeah. But I went to White Station, your alma mater. You went to White Station, right?
Yeah, I finished there. I sure did.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, you finished at White Station. Let me jump right in and say this because I didn't get a chance to talk when Tennessee was just at the bottom of the barrel last year and this year. But I'm so glad that Butch Jones is gone. And the reason, I'm serious, because I'm a diehard Vols fan, and watching him coach the Alabama game last year, I'm not going to even talk about this year, last year, and I know you'll remember this because Joshua Dobbs did not run the ball one time against Alabama. And I said to myself then that this man has to go. Because when you're playing a team like Alabama, you got to use all your weapons. And that game right there just stood out, even though, of course, we got blown out. I think that was in Alabama. But his coaching
the game, where was that game? The game last year was at Neyland Stadium.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. It was, exactly. It was at Neyland Stadium. And for him to not be able to coach, to coach that kid for us to have a chance to win. I think Jalen Hurts had like 3 touchdowns and he had like 98 or 120 some yards rushing. And I said to myself, well, if Nick Saban can use his quarterback, why can't we use ours? But that was just one thing that just was just the tip of the barrel. Plus with all of these sexual allegations with these football players. And I said he can't have a handle. He doesn't have a handle on the team, outside the football field. And I think hopefully Jeremy Pruitt, I was actually kind of hoping maybe they would look at Tucker or is it Rucker or Tucker from Georgia?
Yeah, Mel Tucker. They did talk to him. I think he was a finalist for the job.
Okay, yeah, and I was kind of hoping they were going to go that way, but I kind of like the from what I see and from what I hear from Pruitt, and he's young, and he seems to be a person that can get, like they say, if you can't beat him, you gotta pull away from him. You gotta pull the people away from him to beat him.
No, I hear you.
Yeah, so and peace. A shout out to the Memphis State football team.
Oh man! Hey, by the way, speaking of that, we are about to talk to Mike Norvell, who is the head coach at the University of Memphis. We will catch up with him in mere moments. Stick around.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I'm so happy, I feel like I can fly.
Disclaimer, you will not be able to fly by switching to Geico. This is against the laws of physics and nature. If you find yourself flying, please seek professional and or medical help immediately. In the unlikely event you find yourself flying, you might be a superhero, or a pigeon, or a superhero named Pidgewoman, who was bitten by a radioactive pigeon. If you are indeed Pidgewoman, Geico retains all licensing publishing rights in the event Pidgewoman the movie becomes a top-grossing Hollywood blockbuster.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Baker just keeps making plays and keeps willing his team to wins.
Not down, but never out. I hit the canvas, but I never seen more than an 8 count. Invincible, yeah, you gon' have to be. I don't even breathe, I was built in a factory.
Play action, Mayfield. He's gonna launch it downfield, wants every bit of it.
He's playing 100 miles an hour on every play.
Touchdown! Oh, mama!
His ability to throw the football down the field, make plays with his legs.
Baker Mayfield does it. 59 yards to Andrews.
He also has one win. Go cheer on basketball. No fear in my eyes. I'm a true warrior. Soldiers don't die because we're unstoppable, baby. Unstoppable.
He's got so much moxie.
The Heisman is about moments, so without question, Baker Mayfield should be the front runner.
The Big 12 championship game.
Right now, we just need to win.
It's a touchdown! What a run by Baker Mayfield. Touchdown! Baker Mayfield!
This year's Heisman Trophy winner is Baker Mayfield.
And striking the pose is what Baker did and what he has done all year, but it's not over yet. His biggest set of games remains, of course, Georgia in the Rose Bowl and either Clemson or Alabama, assuming they get a win. We welcome you back. Our next guest knows all about being a quarterback in a national championship game. And, yes, I think he did win the Heisman in 2009. Actually, one of his teammates won the Heisman, but Greg deserves a lot of credit. Greg, talk a little bit about the march from the Heisman to the national championship game, and what do you think it means to Baker Mayfield, if anything?
Well, Baker Mayfield was just truly exceptional this year. I tweeted as soon as they handed out the award, my ballot, and I had him at number 1 by a pretty wide margin. At number 2, I had Roquan Smith, the Georgia linebacker. I thought he was the best defensive player in the entire country and affected games constantly. And at number 3, I had Lamar Jackson. But Baker Mayfield's incredible, Paul. And if you look at Oklahoma and their roster, top to bottom, 1 to starting 22, probably doesn't match up with that of Alabama, Clemson, and even Georgia to a certain extent. But Baker Mayfield truly makes that roster unique. He is as difficult a player to defend in all of college football with both his arm and with his legs. And the way he makes everyone around him better has been truly sensational. He's been a blast to cover. And I'm a little bummed, though, that his career is coming to an end because I certainly think he's been a joy to watch over the last few years.
Indeed, it has, and we talked about this a minute ago. And while I think it is early to look ahead, you know the field of players who are returning. But as we reconvene here in a couple of months, who do you believe all of us will be pointing toward in 2018?
In regards to the Heisman Trophy, Paul,
yes.
You're the forecast for the 2018 Heisman.
We want to get you on the record right now.
Well, I just read your Twitter a little while ago. It sounds like you're voicing your support for Shea Patterson because you think
yes.
Michigan is all of a sudden, because of the addition of a quarterback, in the national title game hunt. It depends a little bit on whether or not Sam Darnold returns to school. If Sam Darnold returns to school, you got to think he's probably the front runner. The quarterback at USC, he's going to be in the hunt. Jalen Hurts is likely to be in the hunt because he is, of course, doing a tremendous job of the last few years. If they win the national championship this year, then he'll have a lot of support coming his way. And as you know, you got to be in the national championship hunt to a certain extent to be able to have some of the support necessary to win the Heisman. So if I were to handicap it this far in advance, since you are making me do it 12 months before the award will be handed out, I guess those would be the two front runners, depending on what Sam Darnold would do in regards to his eligibility moving forward.
One quick question on Shea Patterson, though. You've done some Michigan games this year. You know, you obviously have done Ole Miss games as well. How do you think Shea Patterson will fit into what Jim Harbaugh runs up there?
Well, it's a fascinating dynamic because Harbaugh's always been that pro-style guy, kind of methodical, uses the fullback. Now with Shea Patterson, he's going to have to evolve a little bit, and you would think that he'd implement some of those spread principles, some of those zone read things that Shea Patterson's so comfortable running, and some of the RPOs that Michigan has used, but maybe not hung their hat on in recent years. So I think it's a fascinating dynamic, and wow, what a get for Jim Harbaugh, because Shea Patterson has been outstanding, albeit he's been a little up and down because of his health. But I do think when he's playing at his best, he's better than anyone they've had in recent years. So with a quarterback mind like Jim Harbaugh and the creativity that he'll apply to the position, it's going to be a tall order for teams to contain that offense now that they have so much experience coming back on that side of the football, and should be so much better in 2018 than they were this past season.
Sonny Dykes knows all about coaching in Texas. He has been around and has been very successful. It appears that he is heading to SMU to complete, we think, the coaching carousel. It's not done yet, but certainly among the leading candidates. Greg, you know the terrain in Texas very, very well. Obviously, you grew up there, played high school football there. These are some of the notable hires of the off season. What do you make out of Sonny possibly ending up out there?
Call me crazy, Paul, and I'd be curious to get your opinion on this. I happen to think SMU is one of those sleeping giant little group of five schools. Now, will they ever ascend past a Texas or an Oklahoma or an Oklahoma State? Absolutely not. But why can't they create something similar to what UCF has created in Florida? You're in a big market. You're in a wonderful school, a lot of resources and money, and a ton of talent in your own backyard. It's one of the biggest, obviously, hotbeds for recruiting in the entire country is the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Now, I know TCU many, many years ago far surpassed SMU, and SMU has had a difficult time getting back to being notable, but I think Chad Morris has the program moving in the right direction, and why can't this be one of those perennial contenders in the group of five? It's a beautiful place. And another thing, too, Paul, I mean, I think that if one of these conferences were to realign, they might look at a place like SMU down the road. Now, it might be several years, but if SMU can establish some continuity and sustain some success, then it could be an opportunity for one of those conferences that does want to expand and expand their footprint. Maybe SMU is one of those places they evaluate.
I couldn't help but read the obituary over the weekend. Ron Meyer, who was the coach out there in the early 80s, who brought the Pony Express with Craig James and Eric Dickerson. Let me move on.
Leave it to Paul to just take a completely negative turn.
Well, no, I mean, Ron was a great coach. Unfortunately, he left the program, and Bobby Collins inherited it and ended up getting the death penalty, which is why we're still talking about SMU all these many years later. Of the coaching hires, Greg, let me get your take on which ones you like the most as we complete that carousel.
Well, the one that stands out most to me has got to be Chip Kelly to UCLA. And I look at what he's done over the course of his career. He's always had innovative offense, and UCLA is in a place where he can go 10 miles in a radius around the campus and field an elite competitive football team. And I really think that if he's able to figure out a way to play defense and still use some of the offensive principles he's used over the course of his career, then he's going to shake up the Pac-12 South immediately. He knows the terrain, he knows the landscape, and I happen to think that UCLA is poised for a huge jump, not only next year, but in the years to come. Don't be shocked if they're knocking on the door of USC here in a very, very short period of time, and he has them in the hunt for a Pac-12 championship annually.
Greg, of the significant coaching hires, is there one that maybe you're shaking your head about a little bit?
Yeah, I think I would have to go and keep it in the Pac-12 South ball. I look at Herm Edwards at Arizona State. It's just an unusual dynamic to me. I've never seen a coaching search that's resulted in, hey, by the way, Todd Graham, you're the head coach. You have a $12 million buyout. Here's your buyout. Please leave the program. We're going to keep the rest of your staff, and then we're going to just change head coaches and bring in Herm Edwards. He hasn't been in the field in 30 years at the collegiate level. He only coached DBs in that one stop. He hasn't coached at any level in the last decade, so it's a unique approach. I applaud Ray Anderson for being forward-thinking, the athletic director at Arizona State, but I just have a tough time understanding how this dynamic is going to work. I appreciate the CEO model, but I just don't understand why they wouldn't have looked a little bit more heavily into guys that have had success at the collegiate level, at least in recent years.
Of all the coaching hires, the most intriguing, Greg?
That's got to be Jimbo Fisher. The amount of money and the resources that Texas A&M has, and now Jimbo Fisher, one of the best minds in all of college football and a great evaluator of quarterback talent. Now you take him from Florida State, you put him in College Station, and you give him the keys to perhaps maybe the most quarterback plentiful state in the entire country. I'm so excited to see what he does with the resources, and I think immediately from day one, he's the second best coach in the SEC West behind, obviously, Nick Saban, and he could shake things up knowing that there's a lot of talent in his own backyard.
The deal right there. Let's continue with more phone calls at 855-242-7285, and Kelly is in Georgia. Kelly, go right ahead.
Hey, I was wanting to find out what you think about Alabama and Georgia playing in the Nats championship.
You know, I tell you what, Kelly, I'm going to answer this question the way I answered it earlier, if you would indulge me. I think it's patently foolish to start speculating on Alabama and Georgia. I mean, I can wait 3 weeks. I don't know about you guys, but Alabama has a very difficult game. Georgia has a very difficult game. I mean, am I missing something? I think I am. That's going to be my answers from now on. Dave is up next in Pennsylvania. Hello, Dave.
Hey, Paul. Nice to talk to you today.
Thank you very much.
Hey, you guys were talking about hot takes before, and you brought up Mr. Cowherd's name. I'll never forget the day I quit taking him seriously was the day Tiki Barber retired, and he referred to him as a first ballot Hall of Famer. I just couldn't take anything he said seriously after that.
That's funny.
That's the problem with the prediction game. But that's what makes your show great. Your show is a lot about the fans and what other people have to say, and you're more of a moderator. You're not in.
Well, but you know something,
opinions.
Dave. I've done it before. I'm not going to act like I haven't, but I don't do it for a living. When you're on a show like Cowherd or Skip Bayless or Stephen A. or any of these guys, and I'm on some of these shows, your existence is based on making strong opinions in the moment, and when you do that, you're going to pay for it many, many times.
Yeah, I get it, and you're really only going to be remembered for what you got wrong, not for all the times you were right. So it's a tough game to be in.
Well, but that's what they also, these guys, by the way, also make a lot of money.
That's true too. I'm sure you do all right too, but that's beside the point. Anyway, what I wanted to call about is I really wanted to get in last week. I couldn't, but I guess Laura's not on today, so there aren't as many people watching. As a
matter of fact, you may be the only person watching today.
Maybe up here in Pennsylvania, I probably am.
Are.
I think it's just fascinating what's happened this year. I think we're not quite the end of the year yet, but I think it's not too early to declare this the year of the fan when it comes to football, both pro and college. You look at the reactions to the anthem protests in the NFL. The Tennessee coaching hiring. This is not something abstract social media phenomenon anymore. This is real. I think it's something. It's obviously as NFL owners scared and reacting to it. I'm sure athletic departments at major universities all over the country are dealing with the same thing, and their leaders are a little concerned that their fans have kind of, probably got a bigger say than they're ever going to have, and it's just beginning. Part of it I find fascinating, and it's interesting to watch and makes for great drama. But let me tell you, as a Penn State fan, I'm scared to death because the most vocal of our fan base are probably some of the stupidest football people I've ever heard in my life. And if they ever get a voice and a say in what's going on with our university, God help us. But I found myself watching the SEC title game, it's interesting how the fans on your show have an effect on me watching football now. I'm watching Georgia and Auburn, and as the game's starting, I couldn't come to bring myself to root for Auburn at all. In fact, I found myself rooting for Georgia basically because of Tammy Iman and someone else who, I think Charles. Those people just turn me off so much that I can't even root for Auburn in a football game. In fact, I pretty much dislike Auburn just because of them. So it's kind of interesting how the fans really.
Something, Dave. What you said is I've heard it many times, and it doesn't. It's not confined to Auburn. It's Alabama. It's Georgia. I mean, I hear people say I could never root for them because of so and so.
And I'm forever. Tennessee will forever be tainted for me because of what they did to Greg Schiano. Now, I'm a Penn State guy. I know Greg's got a Penn State background. I'm not going to say I'm a huge Schiano guy or anything, but what they did to him. I hate to keep. I know you guys have been over this ad infinitum, but I mean, I would just never be able to look past that when it comes to Tennessee football anymore. And I used to have kind of a neutral opinion of Tennessee football. In fact, the only SEC program I've really had a positive opinion of for some reason has been Mississippi State over the years. And I think it goes back to Jackie Sherrill, because any man who could upset Joe Paterno that much I thought was pretty special. and there was something
by the way,
about
for those
him
who
that
don't
kind
remember,
of intrigued me.
help me if I can't remember. Somebody once asked Paterno if he would, when he would retire, and he said, I can't leave college football to the likes of Jackie Sherrill and Barry Switzer.
Yeah, well, I believe that, and I think the old story goes he hit on Mrs. Paterno at some party somewhere.
I've never heard that before. Well,
there was something
that you just added a new element. So Sue Paterno, man, that's a new one.
Yeah, it was very personal with them. I had heard that somewhere. I don't know. I can't.
Yeah.
That's just.
By the way, Dave, I don't mean to
here.
ruin a good story, but I've never heard that before. But again, I haven't heard everything. But that sounds like an urban legend. Let's continue with more phone calls. Judy is up next. Judy, good afternoon.
Hello, Mr. Finebaum, Mr. Perfectionist.
How are you?
I did call earlier, and you said Judy. And I said, hello, Mr. Perfectionist, because that's the way I see you. And somehow I got cut off, and it went on to another man. But what I wanted to ask you was, last week on your Thursday show, you were speaking of the coaches that had gotten Coach of the Year. And to my ignorance, even though I started going to the games at 3 years old with my daddy, I did not have any idea that Coach Saban had never gotten Coach of the Year. I guess I just took it for granted. And
Judy, hold on. I think he won.
Me.
I thought he won National Coach of the Year when he was at LSU.
Oh, so he has won it, just not at Alabama.
I think so. I'd have to. I'm pretty sure because I remember I went to the Paul. I've gone a couple of times. The Paul Bryan Award is in Houston, and I've gone. I think twice, and both times Saban was a finalist and didn't win. And I vaguely remember it's a great event, by the way. I vaguely remember someone mentioning that, but I'll double check.
Okay. May I ask you one other thing? What I wanted to ask you is the picture that I sent you with Nick Saban in it. Unless you have a huge room that you keep all your mementos and your awards and everything in it, is there any way, if it's just going to be put away, that we could get it to Millie? She is so sweet.
Yeah.
And I thought, Lord, I wish she could just take it and take a picture of herself and paste it over me, and it would be her sitting there with
Joe Namath? Yeah.
Joe Namath, yes, sir. And it could be like a Christmas present. There's no way we could get it to her, is there?
Yeah, I have her address. I tell you what, I will. I'll check and see if we can figure out a way to do that.
And one other quick thing. You mentioned on and off over the last month, just drop little, for lack of a better word, hints. Well, about not being here, or if I wasn't here, or it's so-and-so and so-and-so. And then you sort of dropped a big hint today. Tell me you're not planning on leaving, please.
Well, first of all, Judy, I'll be here for a while, but one can never. I'm not trying to give you a bunch of cliches from life's little instruction book, but one really never knows much about the future. So that's pretty much all I could say at the moment.
Yes, sir. Okay. Well, I tell you, for one, I just, my heart would just be broken if you did. Because I've been in my house in the bed for the last 2 years and sick and haven't even been out except to go to the doctor. And I watch you every day and have since you were, I guess 9 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever. And I just would miss you so much. You know, there are certain people that cannot be replaced or even have the standards of other people, and no one could ever replace you on that on your program.
Well, Judy,
and I just wanted you to know that. I mean, it makes tears come to my eyes to think that I wouldn't have that to look forward to every day. The 4 or 5 hours that you're on.
Well, first of all, that means the world to me that you would say that, and I hope that we do this for many, many years.
Oh, good. Oh, and Paul, one more thing. Did you ever see the article that was in the paper back in the 80s that before Coach Bryant retired a couple of years, he said that I had rather lose all games and beat Auburn.
Oh, yeah.
Than, did you see
well,
that?
Yeah, I have to go to the break here, Judy, but I think he said, I think that was the famous Cal College reference. I do remember that. Thank you for the call. Thank you so much. You meant the world to me and everyone that works here, and we hope to talk to you again very soon. We will take a break. To the program, let's grab some more phone calls from all the fans out there. Jim is next.
Excuse me, I never plan on doing anything on this show. You know that. I just do it spontaneously, but I'm not planning on ever calling back, or at least for a long time. But then I get in traffic. I'm over here where I am, trying to get out to go some shopping, and I hear that lady, and if your show is that valuable, who am I to say anything about it? You know me, I'm critical. I've been critical since I was 5 years old when I played good ball, and I didn't like bad ball players, and I jumped there, did it all my life, and I proved myself by what I could do. That's not the point, though. My daddy used to say, he's the United States of him, and, nobody else. Well, that's probably true. I'm spoiled, self-centered, and selfish a lot of times, but that got to me. If a lady, my grandmother used to tell me, Paul, she said, son, eat all on your plate. When I was a little kid, she said, because there's thousands of kids in China and so forth that have nothing right now, nothing. And that lady, that got to me. That really got to me. That you and I have talked about poignant. That was the epitome of poignant for that lady, that sweet lady that said she's never been out in 2 years, can't go out, but likes this show so much, she depends on it, and was just morbidly horrified thinking you might leave. I guess that's what it's all about. The heck, and it's not about sports. It's not about me. It's not about you. But it's about things like that, and that's the difference. And I'll tell you something else. If either one of us get in heaven, it might be because of something like that that we've done. You have to do the main thing, and I think you know what that is. But that really got to me. That was poignant.
It's interesting, Jim, that we felt the exact same way, and I think maybe that's why maybe we get along more times than we don't. But you're right, and I firmly believe person could be here tomorrow, and a couple weeks later, Judy would be just as happy. But people do get used to certain things, and they come to depend on those things. And I'm the same way, and you're the same.
Well, Paul, there's so few things that she and even I at times can depend on. The world is so crazy now. But you told her right. You were right when you said, Judy, I don't know. Nobody knows the future.
No.
Nobody knows about tomorrow.
And Jim, do you know why I answered it that way? Because how many times have you heard a coach say, I hope to be here a long time? I mean, I'm not going to ever do that because I've heard too many. You have to be honest, but you're right about the other part of it. And I don't take this for granted. Yeah, we all have issues every day of the week, and we've had dialogues, but you do forget sometimes what certain things do. How many times have you put on a show? I did it the other day, a show that we both have listened to many times, and it was 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I got in the car to run out, and somebody with a British accent was hosting. I immediately turned it off because I turned that show on to hear the host, not to hear somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, I don't even against people from Great Britain. My grandfather was from London, so don't start that.
I can't stand most of these British hosts that are taking over right now. And they're taking over with an agenda from over there, not over here. Right. And I think you're smart enough to know that. But that's another thing that burns me. You know what? Burns me up. But the point is, this is an American Southern show. And if that lady, what else can I say?
Jim, I appreciate it. They're rushing us out of here, but I deeply appreciate your set. And by the way, that's why we try to be here every day. The podcast is available on the app in the Apple Podcast.